Well, don't we have a full show today? Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. We're happy to have you. 615-737-1045, the number. Don't worry. We wouldn't leave you hanging. No disrespect to MLK, but we figured we'd work today. F&M Bank Chat is open for business. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. If you want to get involved here this morning. There was football all over the place. There's a national championship tonight, and the Titans' 2-week search for a new GM is over.
So much to discuss.
There is quite a bit to get to. I feel kind of like we have to start with the football, though. I mean, and I feel like we have to start with the Lions and the Commanders, don't you? That was a crazy game. 45-31 in favor of the rookie quarterback who goes on to win his 14th game. 14-5 now, the Commanders through the regular season and the postseason. I don't know what's a bigger story, the Detroit fallout or Jaden Daniels. I'm inclined to think it's Jaden Daniels.
I think it's Jaden Daniels.
I think it is too.
To be the sixth rookie quarterback to advance to a conference championship game, looking to be the first to win a conference championship game. The fashion he has done it in has not committed a single turnover in these two playoff games.
Crazy.
His numbers have jumped off the page. He's completing 70% of his passes in these two games, 567 yards, 4 touchdowns, no turnovers, averaging 6.7 yards per carry. He's the catalyst. Dude looks like he's been doing it for a decade. I was in Royal Oak, Michigan, Saturday, which is a suburb 20, 30 minutes right outside of Detroit. And we went out and we watched the game at a packed bar with a bunch of Lions fans, nothing but Lions fans. And the vibes were incredible. The confidence was through the roof in that place. You could feel it. It was tangible. And then after the Jamison Williams long touchdown run, it got real quiet. And then Jared Goff started throwing interceptions. Lions turned the ball over 5 times, and I could not help but feel flashbacks to that Titans-Bengals game in Nissan Stadium when the Titans were the 1 seed. Bengals came to town as a wild card, not with the rookie quarterback, but a second-year quarterback, another former Heisman Trophy winner out of LSU, and Joe Burrow, and Ryan Tannehill threw 3 interceptions. I mean, I was having deja vu on Saturday, watching sad Lions fans sit in silence for basically the entire second half.
Hey, buddy. Just wanted to ask you, you typed in the show title this morning, right?
I sure did.
You want to read that for me and just see if you notice anything?
Word by word, if you would be so kind.
Oh, I typed it into the Google Drive, yes. I did not type it into the YouTube.
I copy and pasted what you put in the Google Drive.
Oh, you copy and pasted my typo in which there was an A left out of organization. I did not know you did that.
Do we want to have a dyslexia just kind of intervention? Do we need to get you help?
I think you are.
How do you spell organization? What are you missing there? You missing?
Oh, there's a typo. I left out the A in the Google Drive. I didn't know Jackson copy and pasted. I thought you typed it out. I pay no attention. I dump it into the Google Drive, and I assume
he likes
Jackson
a lot of big words in the title, so it's easier to copy and paste.
You are very disrespectful to people who actually have dyslexia.
Oh, please.
I hope you know that.
Stop.
It's a serious condition, Buck.
That's why I'm offering to get you the help that you need. Clearly, there is something deeply, deeply wrong with your ability to spell words, despite you hiding behind my Twitter account while you do it. Anyway, we don't have to get bogged down in this.
You've already derailed the show.
Brother,
this is on you.
I derailed the show because you can't spell.
You derailed the show to talk about the YouTube stream that 104 people are watching.
Just remind him later, Jackson, to spell organization on the air as we continue the ongoing show spelling bee. Let's continue to talk about
the results of the on-air spelling bee are in my favor.
Yeah.
I have nothing to hide.
For Buck.
It's a point for me. When you spell things wrong in the title, it's a point for me. We take a point from you and we give it to me.
I will continue to spell things wrong in order to damage your credibility.
Yeah, nobody's hurting themselves more than you at this point in time. Anyway, so Commanders advance. They'll see Philadelphia. It's an NFC East three-peat in the NFC Championship game. I thought Philly was going to blow it. Thank God for Saquon Barkley. If you're a Philadelphia fan, I am personally hoping that we are alleviated of the potential of a Philadelphia Chiefs rematch in the Super Bowl, because I do not want to see Jalen Hurts go 15 of 20 for 128 and no passing touchdowns in a Super Bowl. Saquon was, of course, excellent. 26 attempts, 205 yards, 2 touchdowns. Saved the day for them. Buffalo outlasts Robert Walsh's Baltimore Ravens. Have you talked to Bert yet today? I gave him the night off primetime last night because I knew that he would be
good decision
on self-harm watch. I'm still not certain that, in fact, I think it's never been more dire than it is this morning. I saw him. I saw the back of his head. He's working in the production studio, and I just decided to not say anything.
Just leave him alone.
Because he is deeply unwell.
I am already tired.
As he should be, by the way.
Of the play calling discourse about the Ravens and those two-point conversion plays. How could they not hand the ball off to Derrick Henry?
Oh, well, it's less to me about that than going for two earlier and not getting it, as opposed to just taking the extra point. Because then instead of having to go for two twice, the game-tying play would have been an extra point instead of the Mark Andrews drop. I mean, Lamar, listen, inexcusable turnovers in the first half. Players only thrown 4 interceptions in the regular season, throws 1 yesterday, had a terrible fumble. But it's less about Lamar to me because Lamar and Derrick Henry gave him a chance at the end.
They did.
Mark Andrews directly took that away.
And the 2 play calls on the 2-point conversions, one of them had Isaiah Likely wide open in the end zone. And is it Matt Milano who makes a fantastic play batting the ball down? The second one has Mark Andrews wide open at the pylon, and he just drops it. So it's just been one of the most common opinions I've seen, slamming the Ravens for not handing the ball to Derrick Henry on those 2-point conversions.
That's
both play calls
the laziest version of the argument.
So lazy. Like, they were excellent play calls. They couldn't execute either one.
So then that leads us to the AFC Championship game and the first game of the weekend that we'll get to last. The Kansas City Chiefs. They survived the Houston Texans, I will say with the help of the officials, to hear DeMeco Ryans tell it in his post-game press conference. I don't know if it's excusable for DeMeco Ryans to be up there talking about the officiating, if it comes off a bit whiny, but there's no question that the Chiefs were going to have every opportunity to get by the Houston Texans, and they did so. I wouldn't say with relative ease, because that Houston defense was legit this year. That honestly, I thought that was going to put them over the top. They had Pat Mahomes in knots the entire game, but you get playoff Travis Kelce, who waits until the divisional round to get a little WD-40 and gets his longest reception of the year. You get just one of the dumbest touchdown passes I've ever seen, which is Patrick Mahomes, as he's about to get sacked, like Burrow earlier in the season, falling to his knees, launches a ball up into the air to a wide open Travis Kelce, just hanging in the back of the end zone that way, and the Chiefs advance. So we will get the 7th straight AFC title game with the Kansas City Chiefs, and we will get Josh Allen with the opportunity to knock them off. Josh Allen was excellent yesterday, for what it's worth. Honestly, the most surprising thing of the weekend was the fact that Buffalo was able to run on that Baltimore defense the way that they were. That was an utterly dominant performance to their credit. Obviously, they were getting Josh Allen involved in the rushing attack. They got just a lot more push up front than I expected them to get. And, maybe that's just a product of not being used to playing in 8-degree weather. Was that the temperature at kickoff?
I think that was the feels like temperature. It was somewhere around there.
Unpleasant.
Yeah, the Ravens went in allowing 80 rush yards per game. Buffalo damn near had that at halftime, and they outrushed them 176 to 147. All of these games delivered, right? I guess with the exception of Texans Chiefs. I know the Commanders game was a 17-point deficit in the fourth quarter, but still, just to watch that game, it looked like it was going to be a classic in the first half. And then you're just mesmerized by Jaden Daniels taking advantage of Lions' mistakes, because there were a ton of Lions' mistakes. But every game kind of delivered, whereas Super Wildcard Weekend, that was not necessarily the case with the exception of Bucks and Commanders. And I have decided that Mike Borgonzi is the biggest reason for all the Chiefs' success in the last 7 years. It has nothing to do with the Titans. Just a coincidence that I've decided this on the same weekend the Titans hire him as their new general manager. But Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, there's just something that tells me Mike Borgonzi was the standing on the table person for all of those players.
Is the thing that's telling you that it was Mike Borgonzi solely responsible for all the Kansas City Chiefs' success, because to his partial credit, he has been there for 7 straight AFC Championship game appearances. He's been there since they were a 4-win football team. So this is not a front runner that the Titans have hired to be their next general manager. Jackson, do we think that Lucas's love and credit and praise for Mike Borgonzi has anything to do with the fact that he is just desperately pleading, begging anybody to look at his resume to be the next voice of the Titans?
It's actually up on the screen, on his screen right now. His resume, his reel, a lot of good stuff on there, Lucas.
I think he's updating his resume and reel with what he just said to continue to send. I think he's sending an email.
What
every
section would that go under?
Oh, and they're in big bold letters under the at the bottom of the resume. It says, "Do not listen to anything Buck Rising says."
Yeah, well, I can't have you campaigning for me. That feels like it would be directly damaging.
Nor would I campaign for you.
No, but in reality, it's because he's Italian.
That I actually believe. I believe that more than anything else that you've ever said in front of a microphone. Yes, the Titans did hire their 15th general manager in the franchise history. He is Mike Borgonzi, and he is coming over here. Honestly, I mean, we talked about this on Wednesday, I think it was. He was the best candidate on the board. He certainly was my favorite candidate on the board. And let me tell you, they are feeling very, very vindicated over there at, 460 Great Circle Road at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park, because not just locally, but nationally, people did not think that this was a real position that they were essentially offering up to prospective general manager candidates. And by landing the biggest fish available with the most credibility, the best resume, and not going with the buddy hire, as most people here expected him to do, and also plenty of people in Green Bay shocked that John Eric Sullivan, with the Packers organization, shocked that John Eric Sullivan did not get the Titans general manager job, so much so that people were preparing to, on the Green Bay Packers staff, come over with John Eric Sullivan, only to find out that the Chiefs assistant general manager got the job. So we will see what the press conference situation looks like. I would expect at some point this week. I would expect potentially tomorrow or Wednesday to hear from the general manager, at which point we will see all the different things that made this job attractive to him in his own words, beyond what the statements from Amy Adams-Strunk and president of football operations Chad Brinker say. We also have details to give you on kind of how this is set up and what will be the order of things, and how it gives the Titans something that they've desperately lacked here in the last calendar year, which is legit credibility. 615-737-1045, the number. We're going to be speaking of credible. Very credible weekend for the Vanderbilt Commodores men's and women's basketball team. Tennessee upset by both Vandy squads, and Mark Byington, the Vanderbilt coach, will join us next. Will I have enough money when I retire? When should I start to draw from Social Security? If these are the questions that are keeping you up at night, like most people, let me introduce you to a team that's there to keep you on the right track and there to guide you through it. That's Trajan Wealth. Trajan Wealth is Trajan Wealth, and they're not just any financial firm. They're your partners in securing your financial future. They're more than just any fiduciary firm, by the way. They're a family-owned, veteran-led team that puts your needs first. Let their decades of experience specializing in retirement planning and wealth management work for you. Trajan Wealth offers free consultations to help you develop your plan and your peace of mind. So call them today at 615-270-5000. That's 615-270-5000, or visit them online at TrajanWealth.com. Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This is a paid advertisement. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. It was an electric atmosphere at Memorial Gym on Saturday afternoon, but unfortunately for the two Tennessee Vol alumni that work on this radio show, Vandy gets it done 76-75. Vanderbilt coach Mark Byington joins us now on 104.5 The Zone. First and foremost, Coach, congratulations to you for the win over the weekend. And also congratulations to the women's program and Shea Ralph and the rest of their staff for getting it done against Tennessee as well. A huge weekend for the Commodores. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was a great weekend. Obviously it was a fun day for us Saturday, and then really happy for the women's program. Both dramatic wins. Neither of them are easy.
So take me through your mindset the last 3.5 minutes of the game, because it was a struggle for you guys, obviously, to score, and Tennessee making that late push. What was kind of going through your head at the time?
Oh my gosh, I don't know if enough time was going through my head. We made 2 bad turnovers. That was bad, and we also missed 2 wide open threes on the offensive end. Missed the front of it a 1-on-1, and did some things that usually is hard to overcome. But then on the other side of it, we made some great plays. We got a great stop. Chris Magnon had a great block, and we were able to hold on. And it's one of those things where I don't think we're ever going to be in a situation we can apologize for SEC win, especially against Tennessee. But at the same time, I wish we could have done a little better those last 3 minutes.
It's fine, because you get to come on the radio show today, and there's a lot of Vols fans in the audience. There's certainly a lot of Commodores fans in the audience, too, as we're based here in Nashville. But you can tell Lucas and Jackson to eat it if you want to. You're more than welcome to do so, Coach.
You have earned that right, Coach.
No, hey, we got to play them again. And listen, I learned quickly, if you're not humble in this business, you're about to be humbled in this business. So you better just be gracious.
Well, I will say, Coach, this rivalry, which has had some incredible moments, incredible sort of eras over the years and years, it had lost a ton of juice in the last few seasons. And it feels like it got so much of that juice back on Saturday with that game. When you took this job and you came in to Nashville, what were you kind of told about the importance of the Tennessee rivalry? I mean, how much was that a factor for you when you were sort of in the early stages of just getting to know this program?
Well, I mean, it's apparent. We had the Tennessee home football game this year, and from my office, I got to watch the opening kickoff return and see the fans and us take that lead and just kind of see the atmosphere there. I have family from Tennessee, so I wasn't just moving into Nashville not knowing about Tennessee and Vanderbilt, and you know what the biggest thing is it was a great atmosphere on Saturday, but we're trying to build a basketball program here, and we got to get people to, come along with us and believe and do that. And I don't want them to come here and us not get the win, or us, hey, we came in and supported and, Tennessee still won or whatever else. So I think that's what was big for the fans. The rivalry, the fans, everything else, I think was big for them.
Could you tell us a little bit about your relationship with Rick Barnes? I know he's talked about the fact that he called you when you took the job. Maybe you guys have some history that's been intertwined in the past. How far back do you go with Coach Barnes?
Not very far back, but we, got some similar backgrounds. He was in Virginia, George Mason. I wasn't far away when I was coming up through the ranks, and really just tremendous respect. Everything that he's done, and just along the way, from George Mason to Providence to Clemson to Texas to Tennessee, for somebody to be that good and be successful every single time. And the other thing that people don't understand, the landscape of college basketball and college athletics change, and you're still good no matter what the landscape is. Just tremendous respect for him, and he's gracious. With me after the game. Of course, you expect that. And he was definitely welcoming me into the league, like I'm sure he does a lot of people. But he's first class. And, I don't think I'm surprising anybody by saying that.
Vanderbilt men's hoops coach Mark Byington here with us on 104.5 The Zone. They get the win over Tennessee on Saturday, 76-75. They next go to number 4 Alabama. No small test, which I'll ask you about here, Coach, in just a second. But I think a lot of people in this age of college athletics where the transfer portal is used so frequently, obviously that was a big part of how you started to build your program here at Vanderbilt. And I'm just curious because from the external perspective, it can look like, well, they're bringing in a bunch of players from a bunch of other places and they're microwaving the results. But I know that it's never as simple as that. How the degree of difficulty, as best you can explain to the audience, from getting so many different pieces and parts from different programs and trying to put it together here in your first year?
Well, the first thing is I didn't have another option. And so the option was I would have had 2 guys on the team where I could try to fill out a team and use the transfer portal. And everybody's using it now. Now, the difficulty is this. You kind of look at the numbers and look how the most successful teams in college basketball, they're returning 75% of their roster. They're returning a high percentage of their roster. And that is the way to go. That's the way we want to go in the future. But it is one of those things, too. It's you come in and you do the best you can with the situation at that time. And us bringing in players from everywhere was not easy. And, we had to get people, to come in, believe in us. And these transfers were highly recruited and trying to find a couple of different things, trying to find somebody that fit my style, fit my system, but also fit Vanderbilt, the academic standards, and then also be good enough to compete in the SEC. So that was no easy challenge. And it's still putting a team together is something we work on every single day with chemistry and roles and sacrifice. And we've had our good moments, and it's still a work in progress.
And, Coach, I feel like the challenge of balancing that with still maintaining that recruiting connection, especially locally, like a guy like Tyler Tanner, I feel like is a perfect example. Local guy, Brentwood Academy. He's made an impact for you guys in some games this year. He's been an option off of the bench. How different is the approach in terms of that balance of understanding you have to go to the portal, bring in that experience, especially in year one, and also, keeping those local ties in the back of your mind, understanding how important that is with, a region like Middle Tennessee that just continues to take steps in terms of that talent profile of basketball?
Yeah, you're right on with this. The talent in Middle Tennessee is really good. And I think when you think about Tennessee basketball, your first reaction, think about Memphis. But there's really good players in college right now that are from this area. And a couple of SEC players, Malik Diaz at Ole Miss, and then Chaz Lanier we just went against, and there's a lot of them out there. It's a really good basketball area. So what we like to do is, first off, I like to keep Tyler Tanner here forever. He makes us a better team. He makes me a better person. He is the perfect, kind of ideal person that we want the Vanderbilt student athlete to be, with character, basketball talent, and everything else. And so when we got a chance like that, we want guys like that to come to Vanderbilt.
I know you got to get out of here in just about 40 seconds, Coach. So as briefly as you can, what the hell do you do about Mark Sears?
Oh my gosh, it's kept me up right now.
Sure.
They are so good on offense, and he's good scoring, assists, everything else. And I was sitting there joking around somebody. I was like, I think we might have a chance that the fire alarm goes off. I don't want to tell anybody to do something like that, but if something to slow him down or something else, I haven't come up with it yet, and I only got about 24 hours left.
No doubt. Well, you can see them head to Alabama and take on the Crimson Tide. A lot of exciting things going on West End for the athletics program. Men's and women's basketball, football obviously having a big year. Mark Byington, kind enough to give us some time on this Monday morning. Thank you, Coach, and congrats again.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
That is Vandy men's hoops coach Mark Byington with us on 104.5 The Zone. Did you get a chance to take in any basketball, or were you too busy falling on your ass trying to snowboard this weekend?
Ooh, that was a tough scene. No, I was iPad kidding it, so to speak. With some friends in Michigan, and I had it on my phone. And yeah, what a finish! I mean, incredible game, great atmosphere, and I mean Vanderbilt deserved winners in that game, but Tennessee obviously on the cusp of forcing an overtime. I saw this tweet from Arya Gerson, who covers Vanderbilt for the Tennessean. In football, men's basketball, women's basketball, and baseball, Vanderbilt had one win in 22 tries combined against Tennessee between May 2021 and April 2024. Since last May, Vanderbilt has 4 wins in 8 games in those sports combined. So Shea Ralph, Mark Byington obviously deserve credit there. We understand Vanderbilt baseball and the standard that they will always have, but under Tim Corbin, I just love that the juice is back with this rivalry. I don't love that Tennessee lost on Saturday.
I was going to say, I don't believe
especially
you.
in that fashion.
I don't believe either of you. Jackson's in here in his Tennessee gear. He looks miserable.
Well, but look, here's the thing. Tennessee and Vanderbilt are going to be conjoined in this way forever, right?
Sure.
In football, whatever schedule format we get to long-term with the SEC, whether it's whatever they've been debating, 8 games, 9 games, 3 fixed conference opponents, 1 fixed conference opponent, stands to reason Tennessee and Vanderbilt are going to play each other every single year for the rest of time in football, right? And in basketball, they will continue to play each other twice a year. I want that rivalry to mean something. I want Tennessee to win every game, yes, but I don't want the rivalry to be lifeless like it has been for long stretches in football and then very recently in basketball. And it's got some life back, and that's great. And I want Tennessee to beat Vanderbilt in the return trip to Knoxville, obviously. But Mark Byington's done a phenomenal job. Something about those coaches out of JMU that just take over programs and just inject life in year one. Cignetti doing it at IU, and now Byington at Vanderbilt. So a hat tip to them.
I would have passed on Cignetti if I could have gotten Byington instead of Mike Woodson. That's them keeping Mike Woodson instead of trying to go after Dusty May. While Dusty May has one of the best college basketball programs going right now, Michigan is going to haunt me. Anyway, speaking of things that haven't shown a ton of life, but maybe have a pulse, the Tennessee Titans. They made a general manager hire on Friday. The news got out. So should we walk through the timeline? Because the timeline was kind of hectic, yeah? The news breaks that they're hiring him. But then Adam Schefter of ESPN, gets out there and says, well, the deal's not done yet. They haven't begun to negotiate. And immediately, Titans fans on the internet, rightfully so, start to panic because, oh my God, what if he says no? What if the negotiations don't go well? What do you mean the news is out there before a deal gets done? Now, my understanding is, how many candidates did they bring back for a second interview? 6. Whilst calling the other 5 candidates to inform them that they did not get the job, the news got out there. So they're in the middle of making the call, offering Borgonzi, then the negotiations officially underway, while also telling other candidates, the 5 other candidates, hey, this is our guy, this is who we're going to go with. We appreciate your time, your interest, and your effort in the entire process, on and on it goes. So the news gets out there and the deal's not done. Now, ultimately, because I started making calls as well, like, hey, what's the discrepancy here? Do you guys have the deal done? And I was told, announcement by the end of the afternoon, or by Friday evening at latest Saturday. And of course, the news, I think officially from the team, came out about 5:30 p.m. Central Time, confirming that Mike Borgonzi was going to be the next Titans GM. One of the best comments that I think I've ever seen in the F&M Bank chat made me laugh here, because he comes over from the Kansas City Chiefs, as you're well aware. He has a very impressive resume. He, to me, and we talked about this last week, was the best general manager candidate on the market. Best case scenario for the Tennessee Titans.
Was the best general manager candidate on the market.
It seemed to most people, Jets fans seemed like they're in shambles on the internet, because I don't know who the hell they're going to hire for that job at this point in time. And one of the best comments that I've seen, because of course he comes over from the Kansas City Chiefs after 16 years there, well predating Patrick Mahomes, and back-to-back Super Bowls and 3 Super Bowls. How many? Was it 3 Super Bowls in 4 years for the Chiefs? At this point in time, trying to three-peat at the very least as they head to their 7th consecutive AFC championship game. Richie in the YouTube comments goes, breaking news, Mike Borgonzi plans on bringing the refs who officiate the Chiefs games with him. This is major news considering the Titans will now get an extra set of downs and less penalties. So people are worried about, all right, go get Trey Smith, go get, what's the linebacker? Bolton, who's going to be a free agent. Go get all these Kansas City Chiefs players and let's bring the Kansas City Chiefs to Tennessee. Now, I'd take the rest too. But that's not quite what you're getting. What you're getting is somebody who has worked at every level of a championship organization. And I don't know the man personally, going to get to know him better here in the foreseeable future. By the way, huge point of emphasis here on a 5-year contract for a first-time general manager. That, to me, has to be a considerable part of the reason that he ended up taking this job.
What was Rand's?
And being interested in his job. I think typically those things are 3. I'll find out what Rand's was specifically for you here in just a second. But 5 years is not normal. especially for somebody who's never done the job before. I mean, he's done the job at various levels, right? But this is his first time being an NFL general manager in title. So he comes over to Tennessee, who has the number 1 overall pick, and we'll see what their thoughts are on it once they start to have these press conferences here in the coming days. But I don't know how Titans, one, as I open the show with, organization feeling very vindicated, because a lot of people locally, nationally, questioning the realness of the Titans general manager job with Chad Brinker up top. Now, there's two things here that we don't necessarily have to get into here, but we can get into throughout the course of the show, is the differentiation between Chad Brinker essentially having veto power, what their president, what the team president and CEO Bert Nihil described as he will break ties, meaning he has the tie break in any disparity between front office and coaching, for example, or wherever disagreements might arise, but also with Mike Borgonzi having final say. So we can kind of work through the details of that as the show progresses, because I do think that, I mean, it was confusing to me. How can somebody have final say, but somebody above them have veto power?
Albert Breer laid it out pretty nicely. It seems like he's talked to a lot of people that have laid it out for him, and we can get into his reporting later on. But yeah, at surface level, it feels like Chad Brinker has veto power almost in a way that an owner has veto power, right? Because we know,
let's not get nuts.
We have never known Amy Adams Strunk to use her power as an owner in that fashion, correct? We have never seen any evidence of that.
Never seen any evidence.
Right, of her swooping in and saying, nope, I want this guy, the way we did with Bud Adams here, the way we do all over the NFL, right? There are general managers across the NFL that have final say. Joe Douglas had final say on the Jets roster, right? I mean, he made those moves.
And Woody Johnson
drafted those players.
Trades, right. Tried to bench Aaron Rodgers, all these other
And
things.
Woody Johnson could swoop in whenever he wanted to because he's the owner. That's his prerogative. Chad Brinker is Mike Borgonzi's boss. Borgonzi reports to Brinker. So I kind of see it in that
reports to Borgonzi.
Exactly. So I kind of see it in that sort of mold that it's Borgonzi's show. He's the general manager, but Brinker is his boss, and Brinker does have that power to break those ties, like Bert Nihil stated in that opening statement after they fired Rand Carthon. He's been there since 2009. Remember how we talked about Arthur Smith here? Just surviving coaching staff after coaching staff after coaching staff. Like,
in all kind of quality control roles,
all over the staff.
Tight ends coach, offensive coordinator, all these different things. Hey, it was from what, Munchak through Vrabel?
Munchak to Malarkey to Vrabel. Right. So 3 different head coaches.
Which is crazy.
Crazy. Arthur Smith never went away. Same here with Mike Borgonzi, who comes into Kansas City as the administrator of college scouting in 2009. Since 2009, he has worked under 3 general managers, Pioli, Dorsey, and Veach, and 3 different head coaches in a variety of different roles, as a scout, as a director of pro scouting.
Now, wait, aren't we supposed to do this in the next segment? I feel like you're getting ahead of yourself.
Well, I'm just talking about his roles in Kansas City and surviving different regimes. They kept him around. They kept him around for a substantial amount of time. And we remember what that was like with Arthur Smith and what Arthur Smith turned out to be here.
Well, 2 different scenarios, but I understand your premise. We can talk about what we actually know about Mike Borgonzi because, there's not a ton of media availability out there. I saw a couple of clips from Chiefs blogs on YouTube from like pre-training camp interviews and things like that. Now that the league is requiring assistants in the front office to be made more available so they can get their names out there faster and further their own causes trying to get jobs and opportunities with different NFL organizations. But we can get into what we actually know about Mike Borgonzi, the new Titans general manager, coming up next. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Happy Martin Luther King Day to you. For those of you who are off work, we're hanging out here with you. As far as I know, everybody's on today, right? The rest of the way through? Actually, Blaine's not here today, right?
Stoney Keeley will be in for Blaine on Cover 2, so there will be a football and other F words version of Cover 2 today from 1 to 3.
Okay, so you can look forward to that. Then 3HL. And at some point, we're going to talk about the national championship game. Obviously, there's a lot of moving parts. Titans have a new GM. The divisional round of the NFL just concluded, so we have conference championship games. And this Notre Dame-Ohio State game is going to be fascinating for a great many reasons. I promise we will get to it here in just a second. But, you know, Titans GM, biggest local news by a mile, mostly because Lucas and Jackson don't want to talk about both Tennessee basketball teams losing over the weekend. That's fine. We will ignore their feelings, or we will take into consideration their feelings.
We just talked about it for like 15 minutes.
No. It's okay. It's okay. You're going through it. I understand. I haven't heard Rocky Top once today.
Yeah, Rocky Top has not emerged from the shadows today, but nor should it. I mean, if anything, the Vandy fight song is what needs to be playing today.
Not doing that.
Jackson's fed up because we had the basketball coach on, and now he's just refusing to
thought Mark
give Vanderbilt
was
fans.
lovely. I thought he was a great guest.
He is a lovely man, and I wish he was my basketball coach instead of Mike Woodson, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, let's talk about Indiana basketball.
I sure don't want to, although they did survive Ohio State in overtime over the weekend after back-to-back 25-point losses. Either way, Titans have a new general manager. Here is what his resume looks like. I'm sure most of you have read through it by now since the news has been out since Friday, but this is our first opportunity to talk about it at great length. So he's been there for 16 years. He got there in 2009. The Kansas City Chiefs were irrelevant in 2009. In 2008, they had 2 wins. When Borgonzi got there, among other people, right? It's not just him. He's not solely responsible for the dynasty or soon-to-be dynasty, it would seem. Chiefs a dynasty?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Easily.
Okay.
That's not like up for debate, right?
No, I think it gets overused. I just double-checking. It's like elite, like quarterbacks being elite. Like we throw that word around way too many times when there's maybe 1 or 2 of them in any given year that are elite, actually.
Yeah. No, unquestionably.
Okay. At this point, Chiefs a dynasty. Mike Borgonzi, not solely responsible, but working his way up through the organization, proving his merit in a championship organization, and helping that franchise achieve the heights that it has since achieved, which is 3 Super Bowls during his time there. Now their 7th AFC championship appearance after outlasting the Houston Texans with the help of the officials. I should probably stop saying that, but the officials were not an inconsequential part of that game.
Not inconsequential, but I do think more is being made of it than needs to.
It's because D'Amico Ryans got to a podium and started talking about the officials and knew that they were going to be, what did he say? Us against everybody.
Hey, yeah, I don't know, man. Those calls happen a lot. I know they happen to Brady. They happen to Mahomes. They just happen.
Do you know the Texans have never been to an AFC championship game? I was kind of surprised by that. I guess I shouldn't be because I've seen them lose a bunch of disappointing games in the divisional round year after year after year. But
so they're the only team in the division. That's never been.
That's actually crazy. But anyway, Borgonzi. So he starts as an assistant recruiting coordinator at BC, Boston College, 2007, 2008. He goes and joins the Chiefs as a college scouting administrator in 2009. Then he becomes the manager of football operations. In 2010, he bumps up to pro personnel scout from 2011 through the 2012 season, and then ultimately as the assistant director of pro scouting in 2013 and the 2014 season. Now, when does John Dorsey leave the Chiefs as their general manager? Because I feel like enough time has passed where people forget that John Dorsey actually drafted players like Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones, and Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Who are a
Travis Kelce,
part of the reason that the Chiefs are who and continue to be who they are today. It's not like Brett Veach has been bad at his job. They've had success
2017
in their draft. So during this time, Veach and Borgonzi move up together as co-directors of player personnel for 2 years, and then Borgonzi takes over director of player personnel, the position entirely in 2017 after Veach becomes the GM in Kansas City, after Dorsey's out, and those roles then start to realign. So from there, He becomes the director of football operations from 2018 to 2020, and then was ultimately promoted to the role that he served most recently in, which is the assistant general manager to Brett Veach of the Kansas City Chiefs. So he has been literally at every level.
Seven positions in 16 years and 3 Super Bowls in that time.
That's, I mean, by definition, again, it's going to be the Titans get to take a victory lap because everybody called their GM, including me, who called their GM position kind of phony with the Chad Brinker thing, and then they landed the best general manager candidate on the market. Now, what guarantees were in that deal? The 5-year deal is not inconsequential to me, but if you're the Tennessee Titans organization today and people have been dumping on you for 2 weeks, you get to take a victory lap today. Now, publicly, they're not doing that, but privately, they're very, very validated in what their process has been. And about the nicest thing that I've said about them in the past 2 weeks is that I did feel that their process, their interview process, put together a really compelling list of people from all different manner of organizations, having served at all different level of those various organizations. And I thought they got through it in a very efficient and effective manner.
Yeah, and they're the first between Raiders, Titans, Jets. They're the first of those 3 to name their general manager.
Yeah, so the Titans get to tell people like me to eat it today, and that's fine. They get to be right. But we will await the results. This is the honeymoon phase. Titans fans should be excited, understandably so. We'll see what the individual has to say for himself at later points in the week. But I'm genuinely curious about, because I think it's a fair question, what made this job so attractive to you? And what promises were made? Because just because they outlined let's say the Brinker tiebreaker thing in the initial Burke Nihill statement after the team fired Rand Carthon, like, who's to say that there wasn't some level of negotiation on, okay, I'm going to have final say, but Chad can still be the tiebreaker throughout the course of that process, because that is what was reported by Adam Schefter, that negotiations were still ongoing, which is, of course, pretty standard because you got to make the call, you got to make the offer, you got to get on the phone with the agent, got to work through all these things. So that's all well and good. But I genuinely want to know what made this job so attractive beyond having the number 1 overall pick, and the number 1 overall pick giving you the best possible chance in any organization to hit reset. He's going to have a lot of difficult decisions to make. This is a slow burn for sure, right? Nobody is operating under the assumption that the Titans are going to be a playoff team next year, but they can at least be more meaningfully competitive. And how they go about the draft process is going to be heavily scrutinized, given their stated mantra by Brinker of draft, develop, and retain, which, by the way, we all buy off on, right? Whether or not they can do it remains to be seen. But in theory, yes, that's exactly what kind of organization you want to be. That's honestly, I think, the thing that killed John Robinson as much as anything. He drafted, players developed here to an extent. They didn't retain hardly any of their talented in-house players. Only Jeff Simmons made it to a second contract as a John Robinson first-round pick, and John Robinson was not the person who did that extension. Now, fair to assume that John might have done that extension, but I don't know. They traded A.J. Brown. What the hell do I know?
Well, there is a reaction to that draft, develop, retain. There's a reaction of, well, duh. I mean, you draft good players, you develop the good players, and you keep the good players. But that's not what's been happening here for many years.
It's compounded by the fact that their drafts were horrendous, and they weren't at the same time keeping players and again, nobody was standing on the table. I don't think we had the radio show when Jack Conklin and Corey Davis were free agents.
No.
When was that?
Oh, Jack Conklin was 2015
20?
draft, right?
Yeah, so it would have been 20.
Yeah. So it was right before. It was a year or so before.
Year before we started the show. So with everything that they have done since then, you were not only working against John Robinson's last 3 drafts, which were poor, but you were also working against the fact that whatever you thought of Corey Davis, you didn't keep him, and there's a lot of you who would have wished that they would have kept Corey Davis by the time the wide receiver core looked the way that it did, pre-D-Hop and Ridley, and the changes that they have incrementally started to make, but obviously have not completed yet. The offensive line situation. I don't think that there were many people who were pounding the table for Jack Conklin, certainly not after the Isaiah Wilson draft pick, and then Isaiah went the way that he did. He ended up chasing right tackle, still chasing right tackle for almost 5 years later since Conklin walked in free agency. So draft, develop, and retain is exactly what the Chiefs have done. Mike Borgonzi has been one piece of that puzzle. How much of that he's going to be able to recreate? And there's some information out there that I think Albert Breer is the first person to bring up Dave Ziegler, the former Raiders general manager. Jim Nagy, the executive director of the Senior Bowl, is also somebody who I think is being considered for an assistant general manager role here. So just names to keep an eye on. But it's going to be very, very interesting to see how they work through it, because just because you've hired somebody from the Chiefs does not mean that you get the Chiefs. But now it's incumbent upon him and Brinker and Callahan and everybody else under them to figure it out. So we will get into that aspect of it, dipping into another winning franchise, because that's what they tried last time around with the Bengals and the Niners, and obviously that didn't work out. We'll take your phone calls too. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
11:01, good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Tennessee Titans made it official over the weekend. Mike Borgonzi will replace Ran Carthon as the team's next general manager. Borgonzi has worked in the Chiefs front office in some capacity since 2009, most recently as the assistant general manager. Conference championships are set in the NFL playoffs. The Kansas City Chiefs will host the Buffalo Bills in the AFC title game after Buffalo survived on Sunday night at home in the snow. A 27-25 win over Baltimore. Mark Andrews couldn't hang on to the potential game-tying two-point conversion, and the Bills move on. In the NFC, the Commanders upset the top-seeded Lions on Saturday night, 45-31. Turning over the Lions 5 times. Jaden Daniels becomes the 6th rookie quarterback in NFL history to advance to a conference championship. The Commanders will visit the Eagles, who held off the Rams Sunday afternoon in a 28-22 win. College hoops over the weekend. Vanderbilt swept Tennessee on the men's and women's side. 76-75 the final Saturday as the Commodores upset the number 6 Vols. And on Sunday, the 15th-ranked Lady Vols fell at Memorial Gym 71-70. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
All right. We got a lot of moving parts today. We're happy to have you. Thanks for hanging out. You've got a new GM. Mike Borgonzi is officially the next Titans general manager. Now, how he fills out his staff in the coming weeks and months will be scrutinized. We got a national championship tonight between Ohio State and Notre Dame. We will preview that for you here at some point in the next hour and a half, I would say. And we have conference championships in the NFL. It's also Martin Luther King Day and Inauguration Day. There's a million different things going on this Monday, and we're happy to have you for all involved. 615-737-1045, the number if you want to get in there. What was your reaction? Genuinely, even though I talked about last week Mike Borgonzi being the best general manager candidate, I sure as hell didn't think the Titans were going to land him. And that was because of my skepticisms of their process, which I think were completely valid. I think that they can still get it right, which would be hugely validating for them, and they believe they're on the precipice of doing something special, but they also believe that about the previous constitution of Mike Vrabel and Ran Carthon, then Carthon and Callahan, and now we have Brinker, Borgonzi, and Callahan, and we'll see how all that works, which we will withhold judgment, I guess, until we see the team that they put together actually take the field and see if this is actually a good process, even if the route to getting there was deeply, deeply flawed. Now, the question becomes, you've hired somebody from the Chiefs because the Chiefs, not just because the Chiefs are a successful organization, but you like to be associated with success. You like to have people who are good at their jobs. You like to have people who have done these things before, and nobody's saying that you're going to recreate the next dynasty here in Tennessee, but can you recreate a process with a winning formula that allows you to compete at the top of the AFC? The best teams in the AFC are whom? The Kansas City Chiefs.
And right now, the team that they're playing.
The Buffalo Bills. The Baltimore Ravens will be in there as long as Lamar Jackson is quarterbacking them. And the Cincinnati Bengals, despite missing the playoffs, they still have one of these fire-breathing dragons at quarterback, so you have to be scared of them at all times. Do the Texans belong in this conversation? I know they just played in the divisional round. They certainly won their division.
In a tier below. I mean, you can't put the Texans in the same tier as Ravens, Bills.
And the Titans are just trying to get to the tier that the Texans currently occupy. Speaking of the Texans, by the way, it's their locker room cleanout day because obviously they were unceremoniously bounced from the divisional round by the Kansas City Chiefs, who are heading to their 7th AFC championship, as I mentioned earlier. This is a quote, DJ Bieniemy, who is their ESPN reporter for the Houston Texans. They're talking to various players. Texans defensive end Will Anderson said, quote, "We are right there. We have a fantastic team. added that the Texans have to win more regular season games to get home field advantage in the playoffs. Quote, "We can't lose to teams like the Titans and the Jets."
Yeah, Titans were 3-14. Not sure if you knew that. One of those 3 wins was against the Texans. Jets were 5-12. One of those 5 wins against the Texans. So you understand what he's saying. What the Titans are trying to do is not be one of those teams that playoff teams, after losing, are mentioning and saying, we can't afford to slip up against these type of teams.
But it kind of sets the table for my next point. There is zero expectation that the Tennessee Titans are going to do anything of consequence until such time as they do it.
Yeah.
Right? Until such time, because this is the thing that we started on with Brian Callahan before the season ever began. Have to earn the right to have expectations, and they never earn the right to have expectations, except for beating the Chiefs, for beating the Texans in Houston, which gave you a little bit of cautious, well, okay, maybe.
Yeah, and that was on the heels of Levis starting to put together some momentum. He was playing better. He was eliminating some of the crippling mistakes. And then obviously things cratered and bottomed out again after that. But you're right. There is no level of expectation for the Titans to be a postseason team in 2025. They can change that. It would take a lot to change that, just like it took a lot for the Commanders to change that, right?
Well,
the Commanders...
It took a great deal more than the Titans are capable of doing, because what's at the core of the Commanders' turnaround?
Jaden Daniels.
No. Jaden Daniels helps. Jaden Daniels is an ancillary. He is one of the
ancillary, you say.
No, ancillary is too far. Ancillary is too far. That's one of those examples that you would get corrected pointing out me taking something to an extreme.
Just a touch hyperbolic.
But in the scope of what the Commanders did, what's the biggest change with the Commanders as a franchise?
Well, the owner, right. Josh Harris. Yes, top to bottom. Yeah.
Top to bottom. And that starts at the very top. Now, again, Amy Adams Strunk was also viewed as somebody who was good as an owner until the bottom fell out here in the last 3 years. And now Titans fans have at least considered, okay, maybe she's not as good as we initially thought she was, or maybe there are some other things that have to be taken into consideration. Maybe she just made a couple of decisions that were mistakes, and she'll get them back to where they need to be. But the Commanders, the change, Jaden Daniels matters. Of course, Jaden Daniels matters. But so does Dan Quinn.
Yeah, Dan Quinn, Josh
Cliff
Harris.
Kingsbury having a renaissance.
Hell, Magic Johnson matters. I mean,
that's actually ancillary.
Now, I will say this. The biggest criticism that Titans fans have of their owner is not the same criticism that most fan bases have against an owner that is not favorable with them right now, right? Like, the criticism that Jets fans have with Woody Johnson is very layered. It's nixing a trade, allegedly, because of Madden ratings. It's allowing your teenage son to give a game ball in a locker room speech after a game where players are looking around like, what in the world is going on here?
And telling, quarterback that just tried to go out there and win you a football game with broken ribs that he sucks afterwards when he couldn't get it done.
Yeah, you should throw your helmet. You suck.
Yeah.
Yes. So all these things that were laid out in that reporting by The Athletic, with Amy Adams Strunk, the biggest criticism has come with front office turnover, right? Pressing the red button. It pretty much is what it boils down to.
Perceived erraticism.
Correct. But we have seen, like I mentioned earlier, there's never been evidence of Amy Adams Strunk meddling when it comes to personnel and players and acquisitions and drafts. We have seen her let the football people just work, hire them, let them do their jobs, and it turn into success. So can they repeat that? Well, that depends on if Chad Brinker and Mike Borgonzi and Brian Callahan can start to show signs of turning this thing around in 2025.
Yes, but here is why Mike Borgonzi benefits so much. In the same way that Rand Carthon benefited, the expectations have never been lower for this franchise. Or at least in the last, let's say, decade, they haven't been lower for this franchise. I know 2014 was a particularly awful year. 2015, changes were made to reflect that it was a particularly awful administration that was currently in place. But we are at the basement for the Tennessee Titans.
And there was
even
more
when
hope.
Rand came in here, it was thought that, okay, 7 wins, the worst, or excuse me, 7 wins and 10 losses, the worst that you could possibly do under Mike Vrabel. Let's see how it goes. And then they got worse at 6-11. And then they got worse. They're 3-14. So the results were not there. The roster was not. It was, incrementally improving, but there's nothing special about what Rand Carthon, arguably, what's the best transaction that Rand Carthon made?
Obviously the Jeff contract. He did some good things with the Ernest Jones trade and flipping that into Baker and some picks.
I might be willing to argue that trading for Nick Folk is one of the best transactions that he made during his time
and
here.
I do think he deserves credit for the draft class. I think this rookie class and how they played.
This last one, sure.
Yes, I think he absolutely deserves credit for this draft class.
But I would also then hold him accountable, not entirely to blame, but accountable for 2023, which is not special.
Yeah.
And 2024 has yet to be special.
And he is the general manager that drafted Will Levis. How much say he had in that, how much of a voice he was in that, we don't know. But he was
Were
the
you
GM.
the GM when the quarterback was drafted?
He was. And he was also the GM when they went chips in around Will Levis.
Yes.
So, yes, we understand that. But there's always going to be unknowns, right, when you're hiring ex-assistant general manager. Ultimately, you have no idea how it's going to turn out. People compare this to the Titans dipping into the 49ers front office for Rand Carthon and saying, we want to be like the 49ers. There are some similarities, but Carthon was kind of the number 3 there, right? Or if you want to put Kyle Shanahan at the top of that.
I would put
number
Kyle
4.
Shanahan closer to the top.
It goes Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, and then you start to get into the assistant GMs and whatnot. So Carthon was not only behind John Lynch, the GM, but behind Adam Peters, the assistant GM, who the Titans tried to interview for the job. He declined the interview, and then he took the Commander's job where he had a blank slate. He had a blank slate. And look at them. They're in the NFC Championship game.
By the way, who do you think feels worse today? Lions fans who just lost to Jaden Daniels, or Bears fans? Because Caleb Williams has made some special plays this year. He's not doing that. I know it's easy to do in retrospect.
Yeah, I still think Caleb Williams is going to be a good quarterback in this league. I don't think everybody has the same path. I think Jaden Daniels has been put in a better position this year.
They did not have. Again, it's the number 1 overall pick. It's the same dialogue that we're getting ready to have around here. It can't just be a good. Fans don't expect just a good quarterback. They want what Jaden Daniels is doing. Now, listen to me. Jaden Daniels is going to set unrealistic expectations everywhere.
But to answer your question, Lions fans feel worse. They just went 15-2 with the 1 seed and then fell flat on their face with 5 turnovers against a rookie quarterback. So Lions fans feel worse, but I get what you're saying. I mean, Jaden Daniels' experience.
Bears fans cannot feel good.
No, it's been just incredible to watch all year long. So there's a level of unknown. Titans went and got the number 2 in Kansas City, the way the Commanders got the number 2 in San Francisco. It's worked out great for Washington. They had a Jaden Daniels. The Titans don't have a Jaden Daniels, we don't think, coming around the corner. And you go back to the 2014-15 kind of landscape that was for the Titans with expectation. And they're honestly, after they drafted Mariota, even though his rookie year was so dreadful in terms of wins, there still was that hope, though, because he showed the flashes. He was that high-level prospect, Heisman Trophy winner on the cusp of a national championship, best quarterback in Oregon history. There isn't that prospect in this draft, we don't think. So it does feel like a more difficult path forward than what the Commanders faced, because they had a guy in Jaden Daniels who literally had one of the best single seasons in college football history as the quarterback at LSU.
An interesting comment here. Brandon says, the way this radio show likes to make Levis the overall scapegoat for the season's failure, as if building around him was a bad idea. You needed the parts anyway. I think I've been very clear on saying that Will Levis has been a huge part of the problem, but everybody is to blame. If you are doing that, you are doing it in a revisionist fashion, because there has been no lack of criticism across the board for everybody responsible for 3-14. But you know who gets to hold the bag the most? The quarterback that had 18 turnovers.
Yeah. They put their chips in and they lost. Right.
Always makes me laugh when people on camera can see Lucas giving me the go to break signal and then starts talking. 615-737-1045 is the number. We can get into more of the Titans hiring of Mike Borgonzi and the structure specifically, because there's some details that need to be ironed out here, and we're going to do our best possible job to do that for you. Now, this song, Let Her Cook, we're just coming out of the Let Rand Cook thing, and the cooking didn't go so swell.
Oh, we have not figured out the Borgonzi version.
The great and powerful Gons?
Does there have to be one?
Yes.
Yes.
I refuse to let there not be one. I will say, what did they say they wanted?
Why? What's saddest other than to drag these people with it after the fact and for like a month's worth of memes when the feel good, the honeymoon phase is still going on? Why do you need a phrase like "In J-Rob we trust" until you don't?
Or
Let
you've
Rand
been
cook.
Borgonzed.
You've been Borgonzed?
Yeah. I'm just trying things back here. I'm going to keep going. You guys just carry
Volume
on.
shooter. I will say, this
Russell
show.
Westbrook of jokes back there.
This show has desperately needed some investigative journalism for a while, and I've done that. Remind me the 4 words, Buck, that the Titans used, that Chad Brinker used when talking to Jim Wyatt on TennesseeTitans.com about what they were looking for in the GM candidate. 4 words.
Oh. Draft, develop, and retain?
ABAD.
What?
All ball, all day.
Okay.
Right?
I was thinking draft, develop, and retain, but that's fine.
But in terms of what they were looking for in a new general manager,
Okay.
all ball, all day.
Okay.
There is a picture of Mike Borgonzi that has been floated out there. I believe Schefter and Pelissero and everybody used it when
It's the only
Breaking
picture
the news.
available on the USA Today Sports
Correct.
Image Library of Mike Borgonzi.
Which is
That's
why
we all have the same picture.
Yes. So it's him walking on a sideline. You can kind of see the field behind him in his suit. Clearly, before a game, maybe after a game, left hand kind of on his hip. He's walking. He's holding his iPhone in his right hand. And I pulled up this picture, and I looked at it for a while. And I see the iPhone screen is kind of facing the camera. So I enhance.
I would like for him to stop that.
Enhance. And what's on the iPhone screen? A quad box of 4 different football games.
Now, you don't know that.
That he is streaming on his phone.
You don't know that.
All ball, all day.
Are you sure they're football games?
Titans have their guy. Those are football games. I see a football helmet in
Are
the
you
top
certain
left quad
that those
box.
are football games?
That is a quad box. Now, given that the Chiefs play a lot of games
Is it YouTube TV? What do we got here?
in the late afternoon slate,
Oh, that is a football game.
I can
I'm gonna
only
see if I can
guess.
zoom in on the
I
team
can only
there.
assume that this is Borgonzi walking on the field prior to kickoff of a Chiefs 3:25 or 3:05 kickoff, where there are a ton of noon games going on.
Yeah, they don't.
And he's got the
gonna have
YouTube
to get
TV
used to that. He doesn't get to
multi-view.
watch Red Zone anymore before kickoff. Titans only play noon games here, Mike. That's the vibes.
Watching the quad box on the field before a game.
That is so funny.
That is all ball all day.
Interesting. Well, all ball, all day. That's all well and good. We'll
Ooh.
see what
Bake.
dividends that ends up paying.
Brandon on the F&M Bank chat says, let Borgonzi bake. Has a ring to it.
Can we get away from the food? Why does it have
I
to
like
be food?
Borgonzed.
You've
been Borgonzed.
It's not a very fluid name to work with here.
Chef Borgonzi. I'm going to have so much fun with this.
But nothing makes me happier than when he makes a joke that he thinks is hilarious. He's the only one laughing. And
No, I was
he
reading
whips
it.
back around to Jackson for
Please, Jackson.
validation.
Please. I was reading that off the F&M Bank chat. They're going to
What is
come
it with the
flying
Titans?
at us.
I swear to God, the Titans have more of these than any. Do other organizations do this? Like MMCMB, right? Somebody just submitted that in the chat. My man, Catch No Balls. I was just like, they made T-shirts. What I think the T-shirts ended up being
I feel
for
like you're
charity.
just chronically online with one NFL team, so you know all of these.
Yeah, I think so too. I
Like
think
there's others around the league, I'm sure,
I think
but
that's
like
why-
you're
that's-
just chronically online with these, so
Yeah.
you see these more.
it's why you hate collaboration so much, because like you just have convinced yourself that the Titans are the only ones that have ever used the word collaboration.
You seen anybody else using the buzzword this offseason? I see it a hell of a lot less than I did a year ago. Everybody's tired of it.
Stop it.
Get
No,
out of here with
everybody
the C word.
uses it.
Enough. So, yeah, this is akin to Rand's Bargans. How'd that work out?
That's some of my best work.
Yeah, well, that is telling. Absolutely.
I don't like this. Davey says a Gonzi scheme. I don't like that one.
Well,
I like that.
Zach Lyons just texted me Borgonzi scheme. I don't think that's a good
what
one.
it'll be if it goes badly, and you
It was
don't
all a
get all
Gonzi
the,
scheme.
you don't get all the nice things that the Chiefs had. You just got one of their people, and it turns into the Patriots, where you're hiring a bunch of Patriots casts off, and none of them are any good. Speaking of which, by the way, Dave Ziegler and Jim Nagy, two people whose names I keep hearing, whose names you keep seeing out there as assistant general manager candidates. Ziegler sounds like he's the most likely to be one. Do you know he didn't even last 2 full seasons in Vegas? He was there for the 2022 season and then was fired in November of 23.
Isn't that when John Gruden was let go? When was John Gruden fired?
Well, yeah.
Oh, that's before that. Okay.
Why would Dave Ziegler get fired for John Gruden's emails?
I don't know.
It's not like Ziegler going to work for Barstool. Anyway, he's been with the Saints. But just something to keep an eye on, those two individuals in particular. Ziegler, longtime Patriots executive who, it was thought may end up back in New England. He is currently with the Saints serving in a personnel advisory role. He's also very, very much involved, apparently, according to the reports out of New Orleans, in the Saints hiring process because Mickey Loomis brought him in to help lead their personnel staff there. So I don't know if he's gonna help them all the way through the coaching hire. Are you surprised the coaching hires have been this slow?
Yeah, it has been a slow burn.
It's just Vrabel, right?
Well,
who else got hired?
Obviously, you have a couple that still need to hire a GM. So Jets and Raiders are still going through that process before they go and hire a head coach.
But like the Jags are still out there. I mean,
Bears have not named their guy.
Mm-hmm. Just curious as to what.
When was Brian Callahan officially named?
I felt like it's always right around Martin Luther King Day. Like I feel like there's always press conferences the week of the third week into, at least for the Titans. I mean, that's the only team that I've ever covered, so I wouldn't speak for everybody else.
January 22nd.
Yeah, so it's always right around this week, just in turn, because you got to get everything together, right? The Senior Bowl's in 2 weeks? They got to mobilize as fast as humanly possible. You got to put the staff together, whether you're hiring a coach or a general manager. That's neither here nor there.
Yeah, and teams are waiting on coordinators in the playoffs as well.
That's also true, but the process can continue on. I mean, Ben Johnson getting a little bit of the Arthur Smith treatment. You remember how Art kind of petered out against the Baltimore Ravens in the 2020 playoffs, and people were accusing him of being, less prepared for the game than he was for, I think he did the Jets interview later that day.
Is that what people are going to blame the Jamison Williams pass on, the interception?
Yes.
Throwing into coverage with the season on the line?
Yes, I would say that is an allegation, fair or unfair, that's being lobbed at Ben Johnson's direction at this point. So anyway, biggest issue with the Titans, other than the perceived erraticism of how they've gone about this, leading to this point where it's Callahan, Brinker, Borgonzi. Beyond the erraticism, the biggest issue has been the lack of clarity around the structure. Structure's never been more clear than it is right now. So here's a couple of details that are worth noting, and specifically from Albert Breer, the columnist for the Monday Morning Quarterback on Sports Illustrated. And he is talking about a variety of different things, kind of his skepticism around the Titans. Is the Titans GM job real or not? And to their credit, we'll see whether they end up being rewarded for it. They have maintained, no, this is a legit job. We cleared the league investigation. This is a legit general manager job. Stop questioning about us. Okay, well, you're 3-14. There's going to be questions. You understand why this is the case. Among the questions is the idea of roster control, final say, and the idea of tiebreakers, okay? Roster control is Mike Borgonzi's, based on the structure that's been outlined. Final say is Mike Borgonzi's, as is outlined by Albert Breer. Now, that's not something that they've spoken directly on. That's not something that they've included anywhere in their statements about this situation, but Breer said that he's talked to a variety of people and that he's comfortable reporting that Borgonzi has final say. So my question becomes, and it's a question that I haven't gotten a sufficient answer to yet. We'll see by the time we get to press conferences, and maybe you have some thoughts on this. What is the difference between final say on the roster and your boss who has veto power?
So here is how Breer lays it out. He says, the structure intentionally is a little different than what most NFL teams employ, or a lot different. He says Callahan will report to Borgonzi, and Borgonzi will report to Brinker in a setup that mirrors what you would see in other sports. Borgonzi will oversee coaching, scouting, sports medicine, sports performance, and player development, and have final say on the roster. The idea generally is to allow Borgonzi to focus on building the team and football operation and take some other newer age elements of the job off his plate. And then he goes into the existing relationship between Brinker and Borgonzi because both came into the NFL in 2009. They had gotten to know each other on the road, obviously worked together on the trades for L'Jarius Sneed and DeAndre Hopkins just this past year. But that is how Breer lays it out. Callahan to Borgonzi, Borgonzi to Brinker, but Borgonzi is the one that is building this football team. And again, I read
Which
that.
does not make Chad Brinker the shadow GM as, I mean, fair or unfair to call him the shadow GM who's doing the Snead deal, who's doing the DeAndre Hopkins deal, working with the Kansas City Chiefs on that front. Again, draft picks. Ran Carthon had roster control last year, but had somebody who was formerly below him as an assistant general manager promoted above him who's responsible for two of the most important deals that they did last year. So maybe it has been shadow GM vibes, but now we've since moved away from that because they found what they believe to be a candidate more qualified for the job as they have outlined it. Again, my issue with the Titans and Ran Carthon is that they never outlined clearly the structure for Ran Carthon and the job that he was supposed to do. And then all of a sudden decided that they were going to move the goalpost on what the job actually needs to be, and Ran Carthon's not good enough. And by the way, Ran Carthon, not good enough during his time as the general manager. So maybe Mike Borgonzi will end up being, and they clearly trust him more. Now, a part of that is because they have a pre-existing history together. They have done multiple deals together, Borgonzi and Brinker. They know how each other works. They basically, if you look at their timelines, they both have come up basically in their respective roles with their two different organizations at the same time. All these people interact, cross over in some form or fashion, be it the Combine, the All-Star Games, the Collegiate All-Star Games after the fact, on the road when you're scouting. Like, these people have crossover, even if it's not necessarily career crossover like John Eric Sullivan and Chad Brinker. So right now, it looks like Borgonzi is building the roster. And we will get clarity from the person himself at whichever time or whatever time he speaks. Because there will be press conferences at some point this week. We have not gotten an official day or time on press conferences for Borgonzi. I would hope that they would have Chad Brinker speak with him in some form or fashion, just to take a few of these questions, just to clear some of this stuff up, because they really haven't left as much up in the air as they have in previous years, to their credit, because it's been messy. And it's the reason for a lot of angst, a lot of skepticism, frankly, just a lot of flat-out doubt about their ability to put together a coherent and competent organization, because they've fumbled it around the past couple of years. But I would hope that Brinker would at least speak to his part of this and clarify, okay, no, Mike is the guy that's building the roster here. I am here to help them break ties, and that's about it. And I'll handle my analytics people and the rest of the president of football operations roles as have been designated by President and CEO Burke Nihill, and by extension, Amy Adams Strunk is the owner.
Or is Mike Borgonzi building this roster and just needs the sign-off from Brinker in the way that ex-GM needs the sign-off from his owner?
But that wouldn't be final say to me. If you need somebody else's sign-off,
again,
you see what I'm saying?
Does Joe Douglas, when he was the GM of the Jets,
yeah, I know, but
does he need Woody Johnson
Lucas,
to okay
owner.
something?
That's a team owner,
Okay.
not a president of football operations.
But as an owner, you can put that power into somebody else's hands.
Oh, you can, because Amy Adams Strunk has empowered, for example, Burke Nihill to speak almost entirely on her behalf but beyond these statements, right? Beyond these prepared statements and whatever. I assume she'll be there at the press conference. I assume she will give more prepared remarks, and then the people who have just been hired will field the questions. But that's a significant difference, even as it's the same thing that you're articulating. One owns the team.
Now,
the other is an employee of the team.
It doesn't mean you can't give that power to somebody else and have the football decisions filter through as many like-minded people as possible, because it stands to reason that the philosophy in how to build the Titans will be shared between Brinker and Borgonzi. I don't think Borgonzi would have been hired if that weren't the case.
And there may not be that many disagreements. Like, this may be a complete non-issue that we're nitpicking to death, but because it's been so nebulous, we're going to nitpick it to get to death.
Now, Breer goes on, and there's some really interesting stuff here. He says, first of all, Brinker spent 45 minutes on the phone with Brett Veach, but he also talked to those who worked under Borgonzi to get a better feel for how he would manage a staff. And in the end, he found a top-shelf personnel man who was different from a top-shelf scout. The personnel man sees the big picture, how the pieces fit, while the scout is just trying to figure out who can play. A lot of the reaction here was, okay, Titans are hiring a director of scouting, right? Albert Breer saying, no, Titans are hiring a personnel man, not just someone that can recognize talent, but how the pieces of the puzzle fit together. And this is where he says Titans will go forward with Brinker, Borgonzi, and Callahan. And in parentheses, he adds, I would expect former Raiders GM Dave Ziegler to come aboard soon, too.
Yeah, that name keeps coming up.
And he says, and for what it's worth, I think you could do a lot worse than roll with those three. Now, he goes on with another section of his article titled, How Front Offices Are Structured. And he points out the common root that Borgonzi and Adam Peters share, and that is that they worked under Scott Pioli. Scott Pioli, who used to be at the Patriots and then was the GM of the Chiefs when Borgonzi was on that staff. And suddenly he starts to go into the GM tree of Scott Pioli. And, I mean, it's all over. Nick Caserio, Thomas Dimitroff, John Robinson, Monty Ossenfort, Eric DaCosta, all hired by Pioli in New England, went on to become general managers. And then he adds on this. You can throw high-end execs on the cap/operations side, such as Mike Disner and Brant Tillis, into the pile, and a pattern becomes evident. Pioli brought aboard a lot of brain power in the different places that he worked. And then Breer says, it also makes me wonder about the idea of a team bringing a guy like Pioli aboard to be an over-the-top type of football executive at some point down the line. You hear a lot from personnel people about how the GM job is too big to just put a scout in charge. Tennessee's new structure is an implicit acknowledgement of that.
Well, that's because of what their, not this most recent structure was, but that's what John was. John was a scout running the show.
Yeah, he did everything.
All of it.
Yeah,
and many things that he didn't need to absorb under his umbrella that became, it got a little Butch Jones at the end.
Right.
Like, why do you care so much about these less important things?
And then Breer says, so wouldn't it make sense for other teams to have someone put the right scout, cap guy, and coach in place with oversight over them to ensure everyone stays aligned? He says, that's just a thought I've had. And if you find someone who's got an eye for finding the right people to build around, I think it would make a ton of sense given the scope of these jobs in 2025.
Well, that's Vin Marino's role to an extent right now. He is their resident capologist.
Yes, but just in terms of having a Chad Brinker at the top to oversee those things.
Oh, as this Pioli-like figure.
That's what he's saying. Yes, to have an over the top type of football executive to ensure everyone stays alive.
I just have no evidence that they're actually going to be good at it.
That's what the results will tell us.
Well, I mean, we have 2 years of results of him working in the building, and I know that this president of football operations role was just last year, but again, that's the worst year that they've had in a decade. And that's not exclusively on Chad. It's not exclusively on anybody. It's not even exclusively on Will Levis. It's not just on Brian Callahan. It's not just on Amy Adams-Strunk. It's on everybody.
But Breer's take here is, I wonder if you don't start to see this elsewhere. Not putting everything on the GM, having someone above him, in this case Brinker, who would, being the GM's boss, have the ability to say, no, this isn't right.
Well, listen, I'm pro-delegation. There is no workplace, no endeavor where one person alone can accomplish everything. I mean, we're watching we've got the presidential inauguration ceremony on in the studio right now. Why are they doing it? Why is it inside? Isn't it normally on
I thought it was always outside.
Is it?
Oh, it's freezing. Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know. Just wait, either way.
I wouldn't want to be outside.
I wouldn't want to be outside. No, I'm with you. I just noticed that it's inside. Carrie Underwood? What's she doing?
She's about to sing.
Oh, okay, fun. Okay. But just because the presidential inauguration is, how many people work for the president of the United States? Now, that's obviously a country.
2 or 3.
Not a company or a franchise. But these jobs, to delegate, successfully to delegate, is what you want. It just makes the lives of everybody involved easier and allows you to focus on more specified issues than just trying to be a generalist. people are not good at everything that their job responsibilities entail, right? I mean, hell, you get evidence of that on this very radio show for 3 hours a day. All right, one more of you tell me to break. I'm going to break.
Got to go to break.
Go to break.
Stop talking.
Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. Is he a choker? Find out next. trying to figure out how to get rid of the Titans' bad luck. That's what they're hoping Mike Borgonzi, the new general manager, can help them solve. Bad luck, though. Is it bad luck for Lamar Jackson? Because those 2 turnovers that he had in that game, they lose to the Bills. A game that damn near went to overtime, despite Mark Andrews' best efforts.
Well, we should keep in mind, Josh Allen would have had 90 seconds.
It's too much time. Too much time based on how, honestly, the Ravens defense looked like the Ravens defense from the first half of the season. Like, you put them in the snow and the elements of the cold that was Baltimore. It looked terrible the way that there was just ice all over the back of Derrick Henry as he was getting smoked in the backfield or dropping passes. He had a couple bounce off his hand in that game. But yesterday was not a Derrick Henry issue. Lamar Jackson in the first half directly cost them opportunities to lose that game. Now, Lamar Jackson in the second half put them in position to, at bare minimum, tie that football game. And Mark Andrews had a costly fumble after a third down conversion, and then the drop on the 2-point attempt that would have tied the game that left everybody with a pit in their stomachs. But the dialogue today is not going to be about Mark Andrews, is it? It's going to be about Lamar Jackson. Is that just a product of, sports talk most gravitates towards quarterback and performance? Because Lamar is now 3-5 in the postseason.
Yeah. And 1 AFC Championship game appearance.
And this will be Josh Allen's second, if I'm not mistaken.
Second AFC Championship game, yeah.
Second AFC Championship experience or appearance. People in the first half were very quick to make it about Lamar, and it was a Lamar issue in the first half.
I just think the losing quarterback of this game, that was always going to be the Monday discussion.
It's the MVP head-to-head dialogue. Now Lamar is probably going to be the MVP, but he got bounced in the divisional round, and people are going to be like, well, he should have never been the MVP in the first place. Look at Josh Allen. When it's always been a regular season award. What happens in the playoffs does not matter for All-Pro or MVP voting or Rookie of the Year or any of this stuff. But I think, on the whole, did Lamar Jackson give them the best opportunity to win that football game? The answer to that question is yes. Even if he had a couple of setbacks in the first half. To me, yesterday was far less a Lamar Jackson issue than it was. Mark Andrews had, do you know how many drops?
2, right?
2 in the regular season.
Oh, I bet he had 2 last night.
He had 4 total this season. 2 happened last night.
Yeah, and then plus the fumble. So he fumbles. Ravens have the ball. They're driving. Mark Andrews fumbles. Bills get the ball. They get a field goal out of it to make it an 8-point lead again. And you just saw Mark Andrews on the sideline, people coming up to talk to him. I mean, he was gearing himself up for the redemption drive to go down the field and tie it up with a touchdown and a 2-point play. Oh, and man, just one of those plays that will just haunt somebody for the rest of their career. Just brutal. So brutal, the way that game ended. The only, if I could take any solace out of it, as if I'm a Ravens fan, I'm just telling myself, I mean, Josh Allen would have had 90 seconds, probably would have put them in field goal range, but that's not enough, right? That's such a brutal pill to swallow.
Well, and the thing about the Josh Allen performance, he didn't have 130 yards passing. He was 16 of 22 for 127. They were just brutalizing the Ravens on the ground, which is the one thing that we all thought going into that matchup that Buffalo would not be able to do, because they ran all over the Broncos. And you looked at the differences between the Broncos defense and the Ravens defense, and you said, well, that's not a winning equation. That doesn't mean that you completely sacrifice the run. But they were getting Josh Allen's legs involved at a rapid rate. I know that he averaged 2 yards per carry, but that's because he's running for 2 touchdowns when they're in the red zone. James Cook was excellent, 17 carries for 67 yards. Again, not efficient necessarily, but he was finding holes against the defense that he shouldn't have been able to run on as well as he did. Buffalo was the better team on that night. You can account for 4 plays that cost them the game. The difference between the Ravens and the Bills yesterday was 4 plays. Lamar put them in position to win at the end. He also hurt them in the outset. Corrections that he was able to make. He came out swinging. Derek got going, but it was too little, too late. Mark Andrews has the fumble, which makes them feel like they're doomed. They still find a way to come back from that. Lamar, who was the touchdown pass that he threw for what could have been the game-tying score? Not the Mark Andrews drop on the 2-point, but who did he throw that touchdown pass to?
Oh,
Was it Bateman?
I think it was Rashad Bateman.
No, Likely. He threw it to Isaiah Likely.
Yeah, Isaiah
Bateman
Likely,
had one
24-yard
early in the game.
touchdown.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you had Lamar putting themselves in the best possible position to succeed. To me, yes, it is going to be somewhat of an indictment on Lamar Jackson. But the Bills played the cleaner game.
Yeah, the cleaner game.
The cleaner game. They're very evenly matched teams, right? I mean, it's a 2-point game,
obviously.
and it comes down to a 2-point drop.
To say the Bills were brutalizing the Ravens on the ground, that's not how I saw it. I mean, they averaged 4 yards a carry. The Ravens outgained the Bills in every category. They outgained the Bills 416 to 273 in this game. The difference is the turnovers, -3. In fact, not a single winning team in the divisional round of the NFL playoffs turned the ball over this past weekend. 0 turnovers. 0. The losing teams
reminds you of the Titans season with a league lead tying, because both the Browns and the Titans had 34 damn giveaways this year.
The losing teams combined for 10 turnovers. -10 was the turnover margin for losing teams in the divisional round. Like, no need to overcomplicate. Like, that's why every team lost. Turnovers. Lions turned it over, with the exception of the Texans, who did not turn the ball over. Chiefs are just better.
It's just crazy because Lamar had played turnover-free football almost all year, right? 4 interceptions coming into the game. It's like Herbert. Herbert played turnover-free football basically all year, and then had his. Did he have more picks in that one game that he did?
They did all season.
That's
yes,
crazy.
he had 4. Lions turned it over 5 times. Rams 2 times. Ravens 3 times.
Well, the Lions, man.
Jared Goff, 3 interceptions. Again, I was getting deja vu from that Titans playoff game. All the buzz, all the hype, 1 seed, hosting, this upstart wild card team.
Yeah, but it's so much more visceral for the Lions. Like, I know Titans fans.
Oh, no, for sure. Lions went
Super Bowl.
15-2. Titans went 12-5 that year.
The Lions, I mean, there were so much. The country was rooting for the Lions. I think the vast majority of people would have been very, very happy to see the Detroit Lions, not even because of the team. The team's fun, for sure. But because of the fan base, because of what it means for the city, because of that giant banner that they had slung up on the side of a skyscraper in Detroit. I'm sure it was still up.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
when you saw it. This is our year, right? Like,
the drive back Sunday morning, you just kept passing Lions billboards and all the. I passed Ford Field on the way back, and there's just this feeling of sadness, snow starting to come in. Brutal morning in Detroit.
Dustin Gill on YouTube says, if you don't blame Lamar, you can't blame Goff. I'm not blaming Lamar. I'm just saying that Lamar also gave them a chance to win at the end.
Yeah, he did.
Goff didn't do that for Detroit.
No, at every turn, Goff turned the ball over, especially in the second half.
Yeah.
The losers of the divisional round all outgained their opponents. Every team that lost outgained their opponent.
Well, did you see the stats about the Houston Texans? They are the first team to outgain their opponent by 100 yards, not turn the ball over and lose.
Yeah, teams were 49-0 in the playoffs before that. So turnovers.
Witchcraft by the Kansas City Chiefs. But
it's whichever team makes the fewest mistakes. It's the cliche that just is evergreen, and it was true over the weekend. By the way, Jaden Daniels, first rookie quarterback to beat a 1 seed in the playoffs since Joe Flacco did it against the Titans right down the road in 2008.
Not what you want. Unless you're rooting for the Commanders. I mean, we're all like Commanders bandwagon now. Commies bandwagon.
I'm in. Jaden Daniels, man. Just and it's
which
easy
means,
to,
of course, they'll come crashing down in the NFC Championship game. And again, my worst nightmare is 15 of 20 for 128 yards or whatever Jalen Hurts had in that game yesterday to go head-to-head with Mahomes in a Super Bowl. I'm not interested in seeing the Eagles back in this. I just don't want Eagles-Chiefs. Like, Eagles-Chiefs, worst possible Super Bowl result again, right? A repeat, just to see the Chiefs three-peat.
I wouldn't be mad. I mean, sign me up. Saquon Barkley and the Eagles, Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs. I don't care that they played 2 years ago.
I don't like it. 615-737-1045 is how you get in there. There's a national championship game tonight, even though we've talked about basically everything else since then. Notre Dame and Ohio State. What's the level of confidence given that the point spread is so huge between these two programs? I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
12:02, good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Tennessee Titans made it official over the weekend. Mike Borgonzi will replace Ran Carthon as the team's next general manager. Borgonzi has worked in the Chiefs front office since 2009, most recently as the assistant general manager. Conference championships are set in the NFL playoffs. The Kansas City Chiefs will host the Buffalo Bills in the AFC title game after Buffalo survived Sunday night at home in the snow, a 27-25 win over Baltimore. And in the NFC, the Commanders upset the top-seeded Lions Saturday, 45-31. Jaden Daniels becomes the sixth rookie quarterback in league history to advance to a conference championship. Washington will visit the Eagles, who held off the Rams Sunday afternoon in a 28-22 win. The 2024 college football season ends tonight. The national championship game at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Ohio State and Notre Dame kicking off at 6:30 on ESPN. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour. Welcome in on this Monday. Thanks for hanging out. We got a national championship tonight. Feels like maybe it's because we're not in Ohio or South Bend, Indiana, really the Midwestern part of the country, but this has not been an overwhelmingly discussed national championship game beyond Ryan. I feel like there's been more dialogue about the coaches than there has the team leading up to this game. Maybe that's always the case. But I don't know. Is the SEC checked out with a Notre Dame Ohio State national championship? It's in Atlanta. Isn't that enough for you people?
Back-to-back years now of no SEC team being in the national championship. I mentioned that I drove back from Michigan yesterday and drove past all the Lions billboards of hope just crushing the city of Detroit as the snow swirled in. And
there is some awful, sad comedic irony to just the snowstorm coming in as the Lions lose the playoffs.
What state is just to the south of Michigan, Buck?
Is Indiana south?
Oh, my goodness. Ohio. I mean, Indiana technically is, I guess. But Ohio, and I drove through the heart of Ohio, where hope is still reigning eternal. Sure. And it's the Ohio State billboards everywhere.
Whereas a month ago, they were completely apathetic and did not care, and half of them didn't show up to watch them just clobber Tennessee.
What a few weeks it's been. But all the sports bars advertising their deals to come watch the national championship, and all the Ohio State logos and flags waving on cars, all of those things.
Ooh, that's a good question. Are you watching the game at home? Or are you watching it?
Yeah, I'll be hanging out at home. Here's my biggest question when it comes to this chess match between Ryan Day and Marcus Freeman. Obviously, two very stylistically different teams. Well, you give us unprompted opinions all the time.
It's kind of my job.
Ohio State has scored on all three of its opening possessions in the college football playoff. Notre Dame, as we've talked about, has dominated the middle eight, right? End of the second quarter, beginning of the third quarter. They outscored Penn State and Georgia a combined 27-0 in the middle eight. So if you're Ryan Day and you want to keep the foot on the gas and you want to keep shelling defenses, what do you do if you win the coin toss? Do you take the football to keep that foot on the gas, but
interesting question,
give Notre Dame the ball in the third quarter where they have dominated in that scenario? Or do you defer and say, no, you get the ball first?
I still think you defer. Because you've got the bigger arsenal here. You've got the firepower. They have to keep up with you. And that's not something that I think Notre Dame is not equipped to get into a shootout with Ohio State. We understand this. Primarily because of the wide receivers that Ohio State has on their roster. And, I mean, frankly, just the laser-focused approach that Will Howard has had to this postseason. He has been excellent so far. And that's something that we talked to famously, Notre Dame alum, and one of the last people to appear in a national championship game for Notre Dame, Mike Borgonzi Jr. He was on the radio show on Friday, and we talked to him about defending said Ohio State wide receivers.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, you mentioned the pro wide receivers that they had. Jeremiah Smith, there wasn't a ton of output from him in that game. They did a good job of using at Texas also one of the better defenses left in the dance. You looked at all the teams that were left in the Final Four between Notre Dame, Penn State, Texas, and Ohio State. Really good defensive prowess there. And so Jahdae Barron and those guys and the way that they mixed up coverage to try and help against Jeremiah Smith was a huge feather in their cap there. And so I think when you combine that and then, prowess in the trenches here, Texas, we had questions about that going into that game, were able to show up until the waning moments when they weren't. Ohio State won the critical matchups down there on the goal line, and then the Jack Sawyer play that flipped the script on history was able to do that. But you've got to find some way to slow those guys down a little bit, because the one thing for Texas going into that game that we know, the Texas team from the back half of the season that was not an offensive juggernaut outside of the running game at certain portions, the Clemson game comes to mind in the playoffs, they weren't going to be able to go toe-to-toe in a shootout with Ohio State the way that team's capable of. And if you're Notre Dame, that's the same thing there. Notre Dame's best trade against Penn State was they were able to keep it close going into the half here, because Penn State, while they were having great success on the ground moving the football, just is not the aerial attack that can make things happen here. For Notre Dame, it's going to be almost the opposite here. You're going to have to dare Ohio State to go run it and then count on your guys in the box to be able to make those plays, because if Ohio State start to lighten it up on the scoreboard passing-wise, while Riley Leonard and that offense acquitted themselves well last week, I don't think they're built to go blow for blow with Ohio State, and especially with their O-line and the condition it's in right now.
Which we know. They are not equipped to go blow for blow with Ohio State. The thing that is defined Notre Dame's playoff run is capitalizing on the opponent's mistakes. Yes?
Well, creating mistakes. Yeah. I mean, what
the special teams ploys against Georgia.
Exactly. Like that, Notre Dame deserves credit for that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Teams have not just been blowing it against Notre Dame. They are forcing those mistakes. Now, I will also ask you this. Who's the best wide receiver Notre Dame's had to defend in the college football playoff?
Warren, the tight end from Penn State.
Right. But wide receiver.
No, I know.
That is the answer, a tight end, right? Like,
otherwise, like a wide receiver. He's all over the place, but I get it.
Otherwise, you got to go to Georgia, Dylan Bell, Arian Smith. I mean, drops plagued Georgia in that game. Penn State did not complete a pass to a wide receiver, someone who has WR next to their name on the roster, in that semifinal. Not one. It was tight ends and running backs. So to say that the challenge Notre Dame's defense faces in this game is different than what they've seen so far is a massive understatement. Massive. They have not faced a passing game like this all season long, not even remotely close.
Do you know the last time Notre Dame's won a national championship?
92, 93?
88.
No, that's not right. Lou Holtz definitely won one in the early 90s, I thought.
You thought.
I thought.
You said definitely.
You're the Notre Dame fan, so I guess you would know.
The last national title, I promise you, was 1988 under Lou Holtz.
Wow.
What do you think? What do you think has happened more recently? The Commanders in an NFC championship game and Notre Dame winning a national title.
Is it the Commanders?
Yes. But nobody on this show was alive the last time the Commanders were in an NFC championship game. That was 33 years ago. Crazy. Times are changing. Well, I mean, that's a big part of the narrative for both of them, right? It's some level of redemption for both sides. Beyond the X's and O's of how the game will be won and the tactics that both coaches will try to deploy here to outlast the other, there's redemption stories to both of these programs. Ohio State has obviously won national titles more recently than Notre Dame, but Notre Dame, the last national title they were in, was a humiliation on the heels of a humiliation, which was on the national scale, like national news scale, like NBC Nightly News is covering the Manti Te'o humiliation.
Now, do you think this Notre Dame team has more credibility than that Notre Dame team? Nobody expected that type of blowout. But I would say,
a good question.
I would say this team has much more credibility. I mean, to go toe-to-toe and win a chess match against Kirby Smart in Georgia.
They've had to do it against more opponents, more quality opponents.
You beat the red-hot upstart Indiana team. You beat Georgia. You beat Penn State. Like, those 3 wins alone, that's 3 top 10 wins on the way to a national championship. That, in and of itself, is more credible than anything that 2012 Notre Dame team did, in my opinion.
Well, that Notre Dame team didn't have to accomplish that. Like, obviously, the rules have changed, and there's reporting out there from Yahoo Sports that there's no intention to change the college football playoff seeding format necessarily next year. We can probably cover that at greater length tomorrow, maybe. Dane Brugler, by the way, is going to be on with us tomorrow, the foremost draft expert for The Athletic. We decided to do a mock draft Tuesday instead of a mock draft Monday. But mock draft Mondays will begin in earnest next Monday. So, redemption for Ohio State because people left Ryan Day for dead. Redemption for Notre Dame because the talking point around Notre Dame as a program, no matter who the coach has been, well, don't put them in the playoff. They're just going to get waxed by an SEC team. And now they've dismantled that narrative.
Yep.
They've beaten, to your point, 3 top 10 teams from the 2 best conferences in college football en route to getting ready to stick their face into this buzzsaw that has been the Ohio State offense. And listen, not to take anything away from the Ohio State defense because they've played very high-level football as well, but it's been the story of the Ohio State redemption tour has been, well, yeah, they just decided to open it up after clamming up against Michigan.
If you're Ohio State, don't let Notre Dame get that second half kickoff. Ohio State's 0 for 3 in coin tosses in the playoff.
Really?
The chess match starts at the coin toss.
Chess, not checkers, and it begins with the coin toss. 615-737-1045. Who do you think is going to win the national championship? We can get into that. We'll also talk more about the Titans' hiring of Mike Borgonzi as the new general manager. Around these parts, let's go to Miles.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Thanks for taking my call. Live and die Georgia fans. What about the third team playing for the national championship? Team who cares? How about that one?
That man made it 2.5 hours, damn near, into the show to make that joke.
I honestly respect that
You
so
wanted
much.
to laugh.
I respect it. I respect it. I want to laugh at his laugh after his bad joke.
Well, the laugh was funnier than the joke.
As someone that
Just him laughing at his own joke to cover up
Yeah,
the silence
exactly.
of him not telling a funny
the
joke.
best part of the
The
call.
laugh kind of sent me. I'm not going to
No, the laugh saves it. If you want to make a terrible joke, or if you think you've made a terrible joke, the best way to save yourself is to have just an awkward, uncomfortable laugh
Well,
afterwards.
no, it's the delivery of the joke, long, uncomfortable silence, and then the laugh coming from the person who delivered the joke. That's what I liked about that call. Thanks, Miles.
615-737-1045 is the number if you want to make terrible jokes or talk about the Titans general manager. Speaking of general manager, we know who that's going to be. Let's talk about the assistant GMs coming up next. The Tennessee Men's Clinic has helped so many guys over the course of the last decade. Plus, if you're somebody who's dealing with erectile dysfunction, that's something that happens to a lot of guys as they age, as your body starts to change. You understand that you may get discouraged because maybe you started taking pills to deal with the issue, but the pill stopped working after a time. Don't freak out. That's normal. There are many misconceptions out there about treating ED, and the Tennessee Men's Clinic can debunk those for you. They specialize in men's sexual health issues. It's all they do. It makes them the experts in the field. They have access to multiple protocols and options to treat your ED based on your specific needs and what's going on in your body. So don't trust your health to an online pharmacy and don't feel like you're out of options. They want you to understand all the available options and treatments for you when it comes to ED. The Tennessee Men's Clinic protocols are patient-centered and customized to your needs. They have treatments for everything from low testosterone, ED, treatments that increase size and stamina, and everything else in between. The bottom line is no one has more expertise and experience in successfully treating men's sexual health issues than the Tennessee Men's Clinic, and they are passionate about what they do. So call them today at 615-208-9090. That's 615-208-9090, or schedule an appointment online today at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for their Franklin or Midtown locations. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. 615-737-1045, the number, if you want to jump in there. So you have a GM now, and I think it's worth covering. In fact, do we have that Ian Rappaport audio? Who first had the news? Tom Pelissero?
I saw Pelissero on it first, and then Schefter came out with the Titans are planning to hire.
That is the thing that sent the city of Nashville into a spiral. Planning to hire, with the news being out there, some people reporting that the deal is done, others acknowledging that the deal was not yet done. And at the time of the reporting, the deal was not yet done.
Yeah, I guess you feared a Colts Josh McDaniels situation. That's the only other time I can think of where that would come out. And
after the last month, let's call it, the Titans fans have had, I don't blame them for spiraling a little bit by just seeing the word planning to hire. But
didn't take long for them to say, no, it's done.
Yeah, no, again, there were many follow-ups had. I was assured, no, a press release will be out Friday night, if not Saturday morning at the latest. These things are common. Nothing to see here. And they got it done. So you move on. Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network talking about this. This is courtesy of the show, what is it, The Insiders, I believe it's called? Okay.
And I imagine we'll probably spend a couple minutes talking about this over the course of the next 4 months or so. But Mike Borgonzi, who has been a key lieutenant to Brett Veach in Kansas City for some time, really helped build up what has become a dynasty, helped do, among other things, draft Patrick Mahomes. And, of course, that has helped the Chiefs get where they are. I mean, this was a guy who was right-hand man to Veach in every meeting, in on every decision, someone who is very well-versed in so many different facets of how to build that program, someone who works as hard as anyone. One of the reasons why the Titans ended up hiring him. But you're right. I mean, this is the big decision that faces the Titans now. It's, do you take one of these quarterbacks? Are they good enough, any of them, Cam Ward, Shador Sanders, to go number one, to go number two? Do you take all of that, trade it, and build your franchise that way? We've seen it both ways. It is an absolutely monumental decision for the Titans, and now Borgonzi is going to play a huge part in that.
Agreed. I mean, I've been very hard on them. The most credible thing that they've done in the last calendar year is hire Mike Borgonzi from the Chiefs as the assistant general manager. These are some quotes from current Chiefs general manager Brett Veach before we get to the statements from Amy Adams Strunk and Chad Brinker. Quote, I'm excited to see Mike get his chance to lead an organization. The Titans made an outstanding hire. First and foremost, congratulations to Mike, his wife Jill, and their kids on this well-deserved opportunity. Mike has an incredible football mind. He's detailed in his work, and he understands the ins and outs of the draft, free agency, building an NFL roster, and managing the salary cap. Beyond the job, Mike is an outstanding father, husband, and a close friend. I'm excited to see Mike get his chance to lead the organization, and that was the quotes that were highlighted out of that entire statement from Brett Veach, who is the Chiefs general manager, who Mike Borgonzi came up directly with, who served as his assistant general manager and served in a variety of different roles with the Chiefs organization dating back to 2009.
The more we learn about the Chiefs front office structure, the more just insane it is, the success they've had. With the amount of different voices that are involved along the way, plus a head coach that has a ton of input on who they're going to draft. And I know it's easy to say, yeah, but Pat Mahomes. But look across their roster.
It's not just Pat Mahomes.
Look at the value they've gotten at multiple positions, at receiver, at running back, and that defense that honestly is the catalyst for this football team.
For the last 2 years has been the catalyst en route to what could potentially be a three-peat Super Bowl champion, which has never been done before in the history of the sport. They could do this, and it's largely predicated on the ability for them to just supplement their defense. Chris Jones, Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, obviously Tyreek Hill not there anymore, Travis Kelce, drafted by John Dorsey as the general manager. But what they have done to find the Nick Boltons of the world, who's a very skilled player, off-ball linebacker for them, from Missouri?
Missouri.
Where they got Nick Bolton from?
Yeah.
They have found players like Noah Gray, the other tight end, who makes critical plays in critical moments. It allows them to supplement other areas on the roster because with Mahomes, you can get away with, I mean, they got away with a lot as far as the receiver or receiver talent or lack thereof that they had in 2023. We can agree? I mean, they've
my goodness.
They skimped at receiver because of Pat.
Oh, it hindered them really bad. It's incredible they won the Super Bowl.
That much, yeah.
In the regular season, it did, but it's incredible they won the Super Bowl with that crop of
turned it
receivers.
on in the playoffs, though, right? Because he's still a professional athlete.
And Rashee
at
Rice
any
was
point,
productive.
Professional athletes can get hot, but Rashee Rice is a value play. Hop at the end of his career is a value play. Travis Kelce, basically, I wouldn't say that it was a non-factor. Obviously, he factors in to what draws attention from opposing defenses during the regular season, but he didn't really kick it into gear into the playoffs anymore, and that's, for good reason, because it is at an advanced age. They also do benefit from calls from time to time. You'd be ignorant to ignore that. But Kareem Hunt being back in the mix there.
He was on the couch.
Pacheco is a 7th-round pick. Like, they have found value across now a decade plus while they have been rebuilding this thing from the ground up, which also, like, Alex Smith is not an inconsequential part of this. Alex Smith helped them bridge the gap. We're talking about a potential bridge quarterback situation in Tennessee, yeah? Maybe. You don't know. They've got the number 1 overall draft pick. I don't believe the Chiefs. Did the Chiefs at any point have the number 1 draft pick?
No, not that I remember. I mean, Mahomes
would
was
have
the
been
number.
Eric Fisher, the Eric Fisher draft.
Eric Fisher was the
was
number
that
1
the
overall
2-win
pick.
season?
Yeah,
Which
Eric
is
Fisher.
So, how about that for a parallel? Think about that. Weak quarterback class, left tackle Eric Fisher, best prospect on the board, number 1 overall pick. They take, that's a long play, right? We're talking about 16 years over the course of time, since in particular Mike Borgonzi has been a part of the Chiefs organization that helped build them up back to that point. Mahomes wasn't a factor. Mahomes, the 17 draft.
Yep. Number 10
Mahomes
pick.
wasn't a factor until 2017. Think about all the work that they had to do to get the Chiefs to that point. That speaks to kind of the structure, the understanding that, okay, we're going to be in this for a while. It's going to take us some time. Andy's going to max out what Alex Smith can do.
And they didn't bring in Alex Smith to be the bridge for Mahomes, right? Alex Smith had been there for years. Smith got there in 2013.
But he was a bridge quarterback.
Yes,
he's
absolutely.
not a draft, develop, and retain quarterback.
No. Yeah, you're right.
And you
but 5
understood
seasons
you
for a
understood
bridge
the
quarterback.
Well, it's the mitigating. He played at a high level. They were winning 11, 10 games.
No, that 2017 season where the Titans went and beat them, he was a 4,000-yard passer.
Yeah.
26 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. It was probably the best season of his career, that 2017 season in Kansas City for Alex Smith.
So maybe the Chiefs are just the perfect example, and that'll never be recreated because that's a long play over a long period of time that took multiple steps, and ultimately them landing arguably the most talented quarterback that we've ever seen play the position in Patrick Mahomes, that helped put them over the top and make them perennial contenders to the point of dynasty. This is the dynasty now that they've created and contending for another or an extension of that dynasty. Maybe that's not completely replicable in Tennessee, but it does give you the blueprint and does speak to at least the patience over panic mantra that can be essential of draft, develop, and retain. Take it over a course of a period of time. Again, Titans fans probably don't have the patience for a 16-year, and it took 16 years for them to win 3 Super Bowls or whatever, so maybe that's worth it to you. If that ends up being the end goal, obviously that's a big stretch. There's not many quarterbacks in the history of the sport that have won multiple Super Bowls, much less appeared in multiple Super Bowls. They are a really good example of why the patience is so essential, no matter what the organization is, no matter what the competency of ownership is, because the Chiefs were getting Fs on the NFLPA report card for ownership as recently as last year.
Yeah.
That's not inconsequential, but it doesn't matter because they got the right people in place doing the football side of things that it can cover up whatever you don't like or like about the owner.
And again, we did all this stuff with the 49ers when the Titans hired Rand Carthon. Go down the list, the picks they made at value, the contract for Deebo Samuel. So
you're right, and we did. But I think that we were very quick because you went from the Patriots way, Patriots Southeast, to, okay, let's see if they can recreate what the Niners got. And, oh, my God, they're going to get Joe Burrow's offensive coordinator, and this is going to be a totally different thing. When, again, they didn't revolutionize everything. They're just playing catch-up for the last 5 to 10 years of the NFL. I think myself included, I certainly would not absolve myself from participating in that conversation. I don't think we dug deep enough into the structure of the 49ers organization and who was responsible for managing what and how much diplomacy for Ran Carthon factored into his position, which it matters. You have to be able to create personal relationships to an extent for people to trust you. It's an essential part of business. But you don't have to trust everybody at every level of the organization. You just have to have one envoy that can represent the organization and help massage situations if they become untenable. That's what they tried to do here, yin and yang, Brinker and Carthon. It didn't work. With Borgonzi, there's a significantly longer track record. And what the Chiefs have been able to do, again, based on what they wanted when they hired Carthon versus what they wanted when they hired Borgonzi, these are two totally different positions. They themselves have talked about this.
They said that. Yeah, the circumstances are different.
Have said this. So,
like they would not have hired Ran Carthon under this particular set of circumstances.
No, they would not have. But again, that's their mistake for not understanding that they were looking for a certain kind of thing, that their kind of thing that they were looking for didn't work the way that they wanted it to, and said, all right, we'll turn it.
Yeah, but is letting go of Ran Carthon not an admission to that mistake? Like, do they have to come out and say it a la Bob Kraft? A lot of good that did him, right? To apologize for it?
No, they don't have to, but we all know.
Yeah, like, they made the move. They know. They said, hey, this didn't work. Yeah.
The reason that they can be both validated and keeping their heads down, because Lucas, I think it's not even about the way that they handled the Ran Carthon thing. It's the upselling around everything for a football team that was nowhere near close to ready, and the perfect storm of a it's up to $2.3 billion stadium that they're upselling on. This was a perfect storm to create the worst possible conditions to try and convince your fan base that you're competent, because you're asking them for a bunch more money at a time when your product has not been worse for 10 years after coming off six straight winning seasons, or being removed from a period of 6 straight winning seasons. They got caught up in a blender, largely of their own creation, and now they're trying to get back out of it. And if you're them, you feel validated that you landed the best general manager candidate on the market, and you're hopeful. I do think that there's legitimate belief, again, whether they're trying to talk themselves into it or talk people outside of their bubble into it, they really believe that Chad Brinker and Mike Borgonzi and Brian Callahan are going to get them back to prominence.
Well, and stands to reason Mike Borgonzi believes that too.
Oh, sure. Right? Why would he? He has seen not the exact, but a similar situation and helped build it up directly. So why would he think anything else?
Yeah. He's here because he believes Chad Brinker can lead a successful organization.
Again, I won't speak for the man himself. He's going to give a press conference at some point this week. We will have, his words to the matter, because as far as there's no statement from him anywhere included in their materials about the hiring of him. So I will reserve, any commentary on his behalf until such time as he has the opportunity to speak for himself. We're going to get to some assistant general manager candidates that are worth keeping an eye on here in just a second. One sounds like more likely than the other, but, they've had 2 assistant GMs under a GM before. These things can happen. 615-737-1045 is how you get in. Eli is next.
Gentlemen.
Hello.
Lucas. How about those doors?
Hello, Eli.
Number 16, my ass.
Yeah, Eli, explain to me the fact that, because the AP poll just came out for college basketball, Tennessee didn't drop, and Vandy's still not ranked.
It's a robbery book. They don't respect us.
That's true.
How it is, how it's always going to be.
I get it.
We'll get the respect when we're dancing in the tournament, and Duval are just watching from the couch yet again. But on a different note, I was wondering, with the new assistant GM and Chad Brinker being the dictator of the Titans, how much say does Brian Callahan actually have in talent acquisition?
Well, he has input, but he doesn't have, the all-encompassing final say, right? Every coach has input. It's just how much, in the case of Mike Vrabel, for example, he wanted more than input. He wanted direct control over the situation, and he had reasons to doubt that the people that they put around him were going to be as effective as he thought he might be, or his people might be. And he ended up being, or at least they made him look right. I don't know if Mike was right.
Yeah, but the people around him also had reasons to doubt that he could be effective in turn in controlling an organization.
Sure,
and we don't know yet if that will be proved right. We'll find out. Because he does have control in New England.
We will find out directly this year because the same system that he wanted put in place here is now in New England.
With the worst roster.
With a worse roster than the Titans. Well, Titans were so bad.
New England's got nothing.
Well, they got Drake May. That's a lot more than
they have an unproven young quarterback and nothing else.
Well, unproven young quarterback is fine because it's a fair thing for you to point out because the Titans also had an unproven young quarterback last year, and then the unproven quarterback proved himself to be what he is.
The roster was in decline when Vrabel, wanted more control, absolutely. But I still think the Titans roster, even at that moment, was in a better position than where the Patriots are right now.
I don't know, man. That's
just for the.
They're both awful. They're both really, really bad. But the Titans were winning personnel. The Titans were winning personnel decisions essentially over the Patriots as recently as Hopkins. So
when are we talking about that? We're talking about after John Robinson got fired.
The worst Titans roster that I have seen now, this is my 8th season, or this will be my 9th season covering them heading into 2025, was 2023. 2023 is the worst that I've ever seen it. Like, that's Andre Dillard at left tackle. That's the ghost of Ryan Tannehill. That's Aaron Brewer at center.
Yeah.
That's Hopkins being the only source of a pulse of the wide receivers. Derrick Henry, obviously, elevates everybody to an extent, and God
very
knows,
disrespectful of you to NWI.
I mean, listen, Nick is one of their most important free agents, I think, to bring back. They've got 20 unrestricted free agents this year. How many of them would you be desperate to have back? Maybe 4.
Desperate's a strong word.
Maybe 4, right? It's NWI. I would honestly make the case for Sebastian Joseph Day. I thought he was a quality player. On a defense that had some flaws in the secondary, obviously failed him. You need a little more pass rush juice up front. Potentially you address that through draft and free agency, but I thought Joseph Day was a solid player. And then I would make the case for Morgan Cox, bring him back. Why not? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And then Nick Folk at 40 is still, the best kicker option they've had since Suckup at the height of Ryan Suckup.
Who is the assistant GM that's been brought up outside of Ziegler, who Albert Breer brought up?
Jim Nagy, the executive director of the Senior Bowl. You want to go through Ziegler's resume, or you just want to talk about Nagy?
Yeah. Who do you think the audience is more familiar with? Ziegler,
Nagy. Just
because he's been a GM, or right? Because Nagy is pretty front and center when it comes to the Senior Bowl.
He does a lot of media. He runs not just the football side of the Senior Bowl. He runs the business side of the Senior Bowl too. He is the executive director. That's a huge undertaking each and every year. And, I wouldn't pretend to speak for Jim. I've only talked to him a couple of times and obviously done the Senior Bowl a handful of times. But I don't think if I had to guess, I don't think he ever thought he would be doing the Senior Bowl as long as he has, because he's been there since, 2018? It's been a long time. And I think that after he was a scout for a long time for multiple organizations, he has crossover with both Borgonzi and Brinker to an extent, and there's nobody that's more knowledgeable about the upcoming crop of college players at any given point than the executive director of the Senior Bowl. I know he wanted a GM job. He interviewed for the Jets job. He wanted it on the Titans interviews. The Titans didn't have him on their list of 10. So I think that the name Ziegler comes up the most in just the rumblings, and you've seen it, I think, reported by Breer and potentially a couple of other people. I haven't seen anybody but Breer. But Nagy is another name that continues to kind of hover around the personnel circuit, for lack of a better term. Now, there's still 2 GM openings, and maybe the Jets do hire Jim Nagy. I have no idea. Senior Bowl's not that far away, so they have to have some level of contingency plan, but I would just keep an eye on those 2 in particular. Ziegler obviously sounds like he's the most likely, but Nagy continues to want to be in the mix. And he has value. He has clear and obvious value on a variety of different fronts. If you're trying to delegate most efficiently, you could do a lot worse than bringing Jim Nagy onto your scouting staff.
Ziegler, who never worked with Borgonzi, was in New England for a long time, and then the GM of, obviously, the Raiders for less than 2 years before he got fired.
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm not missing the connection point on why he's been so closely linked to them. Again, these people cross paths.
Oh, for sure. They don't have to work together.
Places,
he did work in the same building as Brian Callahan. So he was the player personnel assistant for the Broncos in 2010, and then a scout for the Broncos in 11 and 12.
That's where his career started in the NFL.
And that's also where Brian Callahan's coaching career started in the NFL as a coaching assistant in 2010 and an offensive quality control coach in 11 and 12. So they were in Denver. Ziegler left before Callahan left Denver, but they would have some crossover there.
So we'll see what happens. I expect that process will pick up if it's not already begun after he gets his press conference underway, and we'll see what the future of the Tennessee Titans front office looks like under Mike Borgonzi, who's under Chad Brinker. Last call for phone calls, 615-737-1045, the number. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. All right, last call for phone calls. We got a natty tonight. Line is Ohio State by 8.5. That feels massive, but
appropriate. I don't even blink at that line. That makes sense.
No,
the play styles. Ohio State should be maybe not a double-digit favorite, but more than a touchdown favorite.
No, you have to get. I mean, it would be disrespectful to make Notre Dame a double-digit underdog, and given what they have been up against and how they've gone about winning these games. I mean, it's more likely a blowout than not. Like if you had on, it's like have you ever seen the Avengers? Is it Endgame, the last one with Thanos and the giant glove with all the rocks
there's
on it?
never a last one. They just keep making them.
I keep seeing Avenger movies that have nothing to do with the Avengers anymore. It's like some Russian spinoff.
I checked out. I checked out after Endgame. I'm like,
it was good.
They did it. It's done. And then they just kept making movies.
Shook me, to be honest. I watched that on a plane ride home from London this was a couple years after it came out, after the Titans lost to the Chargers in 2018. And I was stunned that they would just kill off half of the Marvel cast. I was like,
spoiler!
I thought these were kids' movies. Oh, stop it! These were kids' movies. But when it's Mr. Fantastic, who's the?
It is Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah, keep going.
Go on.
No, that's not right.
No, go on.
Help me.
What did Mr. Fantastic do?
What's this man? No, Mr. Fantastic is the stretchy one.
My God.
What's the wizard? What's his name?
Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange, Mr. Fantastic, same thing. Clearly not, but you understand. Doctor Strange says to Tony Stark, I've run through all of these different examples of how we win, all these different scenarios in my head of how we win. And there's one. There's one way that we get this thing done. To me, that feels like Notre Dame against Ohio State. Like there's one real opportunity for them to get this done where they pull out all the special teams tricks out of their bag, and they find some way to they can't stop the Ohio State passing game. Ohio State really seems like they're the only ones capable of stopping their
Notre
passing
Dame's
game.
the one defending the Avengers, the Ohio State wide receiver room.
Right. So, no, I think in this scenario, Ohio State is Thanos.
No, the receivers are definitely Ultron.
It's all right. We're making all kinds of Marvel references.
All over the place.
I don't know.
Who's Dr. Doom?
We're mixing and matching movies. Is
Buck
that a
is
thing?
Dr. Doom.
What is Dr. Doom?
I don't know. Isn't that an Iron Man bad guy?
It's played by the guy who played Iron Man.
Right. They made this big announcement. Robert Downey Jr. is playing Dr. Doom. I was like, wait a minute.
We've completely lost the thread of
what?
the national championship.
We're circling back. You're getting people that played superheroes in the universe to now play these villains? What is happening? Where were we? What were we even talking about?
I was trying to make a comparison between Marvel and the national championship game, and it was ill-fated from the start because we have the attention span of small rodents. Obviously, Ohio State is the easy pick. I would love to see Notre Dame win. It would be really cool to see Marcus Freeman get it done after what has been the Marcus Freeman story. I would be interested to see what would happen. No, Ryan Day's not going to get fired, but just curious to see how the narrative around Ryan Day would change if they were to make it to go on this unholy run throughout the college football playoff, only to come up short against a lesser opponent in the national championship game.
There's no question the pressure is on Day, and it feels like his time, right? It just feels that way, that he got there. He got to the game, which he couldn't do a few years ago, despite that valiant effort against Georgia in the semifinal. It was Georgia's day, and Georgia went on to win the national championship. This all feels like it's lining up for Ryan Day to finally cross that threshold. And Marcus Freeman will still be viewed in an extremely positive light. Whatever happens, they could get blown out, and you'll have people saying Notre Dame will never win the big one, whatever. But Marcus Freeman...
I mean, it can't look like the Alabama Notre Dame national
No, it can't. You're right. But he has improved his stock more than any other coach in this college football playoff. Ooh, I don't think it's close.
I would agree.
So the pressure is on Ryan Day, without question. Without question. See how it goes.
All right. Polls?
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. What was your reaction to the Titans hiring Mike Borgonzi as general manager? Troy says extremely happy and relieved. Tim says no reaction yet. He's not getting his hopes up. Eric says best case scenario. Ricky says excited. Jack says excited. Joshua says talk to me next season.
No, I think those are all fair, right? You can have some portion of the fan base that's super excited. I truly think it's the best case scenario. Whether it'll play itself out as the best case scenario remains to be seen. But there's nothing wrong with being excited in the moment and then being like, all right, we won't have any idea what this football team is really until October, November, and we still may not know until next season because this is a long play. It needs to be a long play at the very minimum.
How are you feeling about the Titans front office structure after hiring Borgonzi? 64.2% say better, 33% say the same, only 2.7% say worse.
Yeah, I'd be surprised how many people would actually feel worse about this. I'm just kind of wait and see on the entirety of the structure. Like I said, just because they spent 3 years getting it wrong does not mean that they're wrong this time, but it makes me skeptical about everything until such time as I see legitimate dividends.
Yeah, this is as much clarity as we have seen in the structure since John Robinson was the general manager when it was all on him.
Yeah.
So that is a good thing for the fan base. Which is the more disappointed fan base after the divisional round of the NFL playoffs? Ravens or Lions? 78.6% say Lions.
No, I don't know if it's that overwhelming. I mean, because the country was rooting for the Lions, it felt like there's probably more than just Lions fans.
They had the most "this is our year" feel of any team.
They literally had it
in the
plastered
NFL
on the side of skyscrapers in downtown Detroit.
Now, with the Ravens, you're talking about, at this point, multiple years in a row of heart ripped out of your chest playoff exits.
Yeah.
Like you had the one seed Lamar MVP year ended by the Titans, of course, and Derrick Henry running all over you. Robert was venting to me about it this morning, and I had totally forgotten about the Bengals playoff game where Tyler Huntley was playing. The Sam Hubbard scoop and score, 99 yards, all the way back the other way. That was like 2 or 3 seasons ago.
Yeah, I didn't remember that.
And then obviously last year you have the Zay Flowers. That was 2 years ago. And then last season you had the Zay Flowers fumble on the goal line against the Chiefs. So if you think about it, the Ravens have had some brutal playoff exits in the last few years.
Nobody feels like they hurt themselves more in a big spot than the Lamar Jackson Baltimore Ravens.
Man.
Like this era of Baltimore Ravens football, like it feels like there's just missed opportunity after missed opportunity that you can point to in each of those losses.
Hate it for Derrick Henry. Lamar Jackson still should be the MVP.
Yeah,
who you got?
Reward.
Yeah, who you got? Notre Dame or Ohio State? 66% go Ohio State.
Yeah, that feels right.
6:30 tonight on ESPN. Those are the polls.
Interesting to see how it goes. We'll look forward to seeing the results of the national championship. We got Dane Brugler on tomorrow. We'll talk prospects as well as roster construction in college football with the Athletics' foremost draft analyst. Primetime tonight.